In my past life, my elder sister was chosen as the crown princess for her alluring beauty and intoxicating feminine scent. The beastly emperor simultaneously betrothed me to the crown prince as his concubine. Consumed by jealousy, my sister drugged me with a love potion that very night and delivered me to the bedchamber of the serpent prince, born of a palace maid. In the end, after enduring 30 lashes, I was forced to marry the serpent prince. Yet after marriage, my elder sister bore only common serpents with the crown prince, while I gave birth to a celestial dragon for the azure serpent. Upon the dragon's birth, the emperor deposed the crown prince and decreed the throne would pass to my offspring when he came of age. Consumed by envy, my sister stole into my chambers, ripping the divine sinews from my young dragon's spine and scaling him alive. My precious dragon perished in agony, after which she strangled me to death with his own golden tendons. When my eyes opened again, I found myself back on the day the beast emperor arranged our marriages. She was determined to wed the green serpent. I knew then, she had been reborn just like me, but this time, she couldn't even bear leeches. The beast emperor betrothed my elder sister Thorn to the crown prince as his consort, while I was bestowed upon him as a concubine. His intention was for me to enter the palace and serve my elder sister and the crown prince dutifully. Little did he know. My sister's face twisted with resentment at his words, and our parents' expressions darkened. That evening, my personal maid brought me a cup of tea, claiming it would soothe my restless mind after days of distraction. Mere moments after drinking the tea, my limbs grew weak and my body burned with fever. My mother secretly summoned a sedan chair, instructing the bearers to deliver me to Prince Green Serpent's residence. Dove, don't resent your mother. How could you ever be worthy of sharing a husband with your elder sister? I hear that green-eyed serpent is quite handsome. If you please him tonight, becoming his principal wife would surely surpass being the crown prince's concubine. The green-eyed serpent mother spoke of was Night, born of a palace maid, low-born and disfavored by the emperor. Though fair of face, he was withdrawn by nature and frequently bedridden with illness. The next day, Mother deliberately had servants spread word of my illicit union with Night. The emperor flew into a rage and ordered me publicly flogged 30 times, beaten within an inch of my life. I was dragged into the royal manor like a dead dog. A month later, Night and I hastily held our wedding ceremony. That same day, Thorn had her grand wedding, becoming the envied crown princess. 1. Out of deference to my father's position as chancellor, Night made me his official consort, yet he deemed me shameless and never showed me the slightest affection. The capital's nobility would sneer at the mere mention of my name. My reputation was in tatters. By divine mercy, I conceived that very night. Months later, I gave birth to a dragon python, the sacred emblem of our kind. The dragon python is the most exalted being among the beast python clan. The last one was born 3 centuries ago. The Python Emperor was overjoyed and immediately bestowed upon the dragon python the title of Imperial Crown Prince. As the mother, I received countless honors by virtue of my child's status. My elder sister gave birth 2 months after me. On her delivery day, she specifically sent the Crown Prince to inform the Emperor, boasting she would bear a child more noble than even the Imperial Dragon Serpent. Yet after laboring for a full day and night, she only delivered a frail little serpent. As Longbow grew, the Serpent Emperor's fondness for him deepened. Meanwhile, the Crown Prince grew increasingly frail like the knights of old. Confined to his sickbed, the Emperor deposed him to focus on recovery, decreeing the throne would pass directly to Imperial grandson Longbow upon his abdication. Enraged, elder sister Thorn persistently pursued mating with the Crown Prince, hoping to bear a dragon serpent heir. Yet she only birthed increasingly sickly serpent offspring. When the dragon serpent turned 6 and began secluded cultivation, Thorn ambushed him at his training grounds. As he meditated to absorb spiritual energy, she bound him with divine whips, extracted his dragon tendons, and methodically plucked every scale from his body. The dragon child perished in agony. While I remained unaware, she visited under pretense of goodwill, then strangled me to death with the dragon child's own tendons when my guard was down. When my eyes opened again, my elder sister knelt beside me, her forehead striking the ground with a heavy thud. Your Majesty, I beg you to revoke this decree. I cannot marry the Crown Prince. My heart belongs solely to the third prince. Knight, I implore your mercy. The resolute look on Thorn's face told me she too had been reborn. My father, who had been seated in the lower position, rose in alarm and knelt beside my eldest sister, trembling. He pressed his forehead to the ground. Your Majesty, please forgive Thorn's insolence. The fault lies with my failure in discipline. As he spoke, he tugged at my sister's sleeve, urging her to beg for mercy, yet my sister defiantly raised her head, her gaze resolute and demeanor unwavering. As if prepared to meet her fate, my gaze shifted to the other protagonist of the day, Prince Ezekiel of the Beast Fang clan. Ezekiel's radiant eyes dimmed instantly upon hearing his elder sister reject the arranged marriage. His face clearly showing wounded disappointment. Watching Thorn kneeling with eyes averted, he sighed deeply before descending from his princely dais to kneel as well. Your Majesty, my heart belongs to Dove, the second daughter of Chancellor Damien. I humbly beg for your royal blessing of this union. The entire hall erupted in gasps of astonishment. In the beast-wild continent, males outnumber females, and females are typically given preferential treatment. But exceptions like me don't qualify for such privileges. With my scrawny frame, shriveled appearance, and barely detectable feminine aura, anyone could tell I'd never bear robust beastlings. My elder sister, born merely 10 minutes before me, was my complete opposite, with bewitching features, voluptuous curves, and an intoxicating feminine allure radiating from her entire being. Whenever she stepped out, that scent would send hordes of males fawning and frolicking around her. The Emperor's fury still raged. This is an imperial decree of marriage. How dare you question it? Yet he refrained from openly humiliating the crown prince, declaring sternly, "We bestow Dove upon you as a consort. Speak no further of this." It served as a face-saving compromise for the heir apparent. The crown prince had no choice but to kowtow in gratitude before returning to his seat. Just like in my past life, I remain the crown prince's concubine. The Emperor's gaze then shifted to my kneeling father, Chancellor Damien. If you cannot properly discipline your eldest daughter Thorn, perhaps we should entrust her to the Empress. Let her palace staff teach the girl some manners. My father knew all too well the brutal methods of the palace eunuchs and matrons. Trembling like a leaf, he kowtowed repeatedly and begged for mercy. "Spare me, your Majesty. I swear to discipline them severely upon my return." Inside the Prime Minister's residence. "Dove, drink this sedative and get some rest early," Mother ordered as a servant presented me with a bowl of murky medicinal broth, identical to the aphrodisiac from my past life. It emitted that same nauseatingly cloying sweetness. I was just about to take it when Thorn knocked it out of my hand. "You're not drinking this. Get out." Thorn snapped at me harshly. I stood my ground. "Mother, I don't care. I'm marrying the prince." Thorn sobbed petulantly. "She's been making a scene for nearly 2 hours now, marrying that lowly prince instead of the crown prince. You'd be giving others an undeserved advantage." My mother shot me a meaningful glance as she spoke. "As the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household, your noble status naturally demands a match with someone equally distinguished, His Highness the Crown Prince. Moreover, this is an imperial decree. There's no room for discussion." The mother spoke with gentle persuasion, yet showed no sign of relenting. Seeing her mother's firm stance, Thorn rolled her eyes twice before swallowing her sobs. When the mother saw she'd stopped crying, thinking she'd finally come around, she cooed endearments before leaving Thorn's courtyard. Half an hour later, rustling sounds came from Thorn's courtyard, and I crept closer to eavesdrop. "Are the palanquin bearers ready? I've just taken the aphrodisiac tonic and must hurry to the prince's manor. Spread the word tonight. Sleep in my bed so Mother won't notice." "Understood," Thorn whispered to her chambermaid. "So she intends to tread the path I walked in my past life, though I wonder if 30 lashes will appease the Emperor's wrath this time. Last life, I was merely gifted as the Crown Prince's concubine on a whim, but Thorn is his personally appointed Crown Princess, too." The next day, Thorn and Knight knelt side by side in the Grand Hall. Behind them at an angle knelt their ashen-faced father and mother. The hall was filled with a sweet fragrance emanating from Thorn, her scent grown more potent after her first intimate experience. Knight gazed at her with unmistakable infatuation, while even the chamberlain standing nearby squinted in quiet pleasure. "Your Majesty, I truly cherish the prince with all my heart. I beg for your gracious permission and am willing to accept any punishment." Thorn spoke softly yet resolutely. Knight also kowtowed. "Father, the fault lies entirely with me. It was my infatuation with Lady Damien that led to this transgression. I submit myself to your judgment, but as Thorn and I have already consummated our union, and with rumors circulating in the capital, I implore you to consider the imperial dignity and grant us your blessing." He was indeed clever, invoking the Emperor's most prized concern, the royal family's reputation. The Crown Prince, destined to inherit the throne, could never marry a woman who had already been intimate with another man. The Emperor's eyes bulged with rage, his entire body trembling. "Very well, since you treat our decree as child's play, today we shall grant your wish." Turning to the eunuch attending him, he commanded, "Draft an edict. We hereby strip Knight of his princely title, demoting him to a common Naga. His royal status shall never be restored. As for Thorn, who's so willing to marry him, let her be bestowed as his wife." Mother fainted dead away upon hearing this, while father nearly collapsed to his knees. Thorn paled momentarily, but after brief contemplation, she bit her lip and kowtowed. "This humble subject thanks your Majesty's magnanimity. My devotion lies with Knight the man, not the prince." As long as she could bear the divine dragon serpent, what did it matter if the prince regained his title? She'd surely enjoy endless wealth and luxury. Besides, if her child ascended the throne, would the prince's position even matter? Knight listened with moist eyes, his infatuation visibly deepening. The Emperor studied Thorn's words and the kneeling pair before him. Sensing genuine affection, he released an almost imperceptible sigh, his stern expression softening slightly. In that case, you may continue residing in the former princely estate, but henceforth, Knight shall hold no noble title nor receive imperial stipends. Govern yourselves accordingly. The Emperor showed Thorn clemency after all, truly. Beauty and sweet feminine allure command favor wherever they go. Should Thorn ever bear a draconic heir, the Emperor would surely restore his favor to both Knight and her. Alas, her scheming proved futile. In this lifetime, she couldn't conceive even a leech, let alone a serpent. My elder sister and I were to be wed on the same day. Fearing her suffering in the royal household, our parents prepared a lavish dowry for her. Yet mine remained as modest as in my past life, merely 3 or 5 chests. In my previous life, Mother had said, you sullied yourself with that prince before marriage. These paltry dowry chests are only given out of deference to the imperial family. In this life, Mother said, now that you're marrying the crown prince as a concubine with no worries about food or clothing, why should we prepare a dowry? These few chests are just for show. As Thorn insisted on marrying the lowborn knight, her parents' faces darkened with gloom. Yet they couldn't bring themselves to scold her. Thorn was their pride and the apple of their eye. Had she married the dragon-serpent crown prince, she would have become the future queen of the Mang tribe, yet now she could only marry a disgraced prince. There'll be no future prospects left, might as well live worse than a head palace maid. My elder sister noticed Mother's lingering melancholy and drew her aside, whispering in her ear. Mother glanced at me and said, are you certain? Should that wretched girl become queen someday, don't come crying with regrets. With a coquettish pout, my sister replied, don't fret, Mother, the imperial heir might already quicken in my womb. Everything proceeds according to my design. On the wedding night, drums thundered and gongs clamored. As I knelt before our parents before leaving, my elder sister whispered in my ear, Dove, don't think marrying that barbarian crown prince gives you an advantage, though I'm but a commoner's wife now. The future Empress Dowager's throne shall be mine alone. I smiled without reply, kowtowed once to our seated parents, then turned away. From that moment onward, nothing of the Damien family concerned me anymore. Thorn staked her entire fortune and status to marry Knight, believing the dragon's bloodline flowed through his veins, but she had no idea. The reason I could birth dragon pythons was because I carried a beast core within me. My gaunt, withered appearance all these years came from sustaining this core with my own vitality. When pregnant, the core would merge with the placenta on its own, demanding twice the nourishment to sustain it, but after childbirth, my body would return to normal. Thorn also possesses an inner elixir, but her elixir works in the opposite way of mine. It absorbs all vital essence to nourish her, enhancing her beauty and emitting a captivating fragrance. In her past life, the reason she couldn't even bear a python and only gave birth to sickly serpent offspring was because the elixir drained all her nutrients. These 2 elixirs were obtained by our mother through desperate pleas to the python tribe's shaman. She only heard that one inner elixir required bodily nourishment, which would suppress beauty and feminine scent, while the other could enhance beauty and emit an alluring feminine fragrance. Without hesitation, her mother made the allocation. 3. Her mind was wholly consumed with plotting how Thorn could use the inner elixir to climb the social ladder step by step, so much so that she didn't register a single word of the witch's subsequent explanations. The once robust crown prince of the previous life became bedridden with chronic illness after marrying Thorn. For someone as frail as Knight, he'd likely exhaust his vital essence within 2 years. Dozens of luminous pearls illuminated the bridal chamber as bright as daylight. Having lost track of time, I sat alone on the edge of the bed in a daze, feeling like Knight had fallen ages ago. With a creak, the door swung open, revealing a silhouette before me. Dove, came the voice, clear and tender. The bridal veil was lifted, and I looked up to see the strikingly handsome Crown Prince Ezekiel. His expression remained impassive, devoid of any joy at taking a new bride. I suppose he still carries a torch for my elder sister. After all, he only chose me out of reluctant compromise to protect his true love. You must be starving after this long wait. I'll have the palace kitchen prepare you a proper meal, he asked with an impassive face, but before I could answer, he directly instructed the attending maid to prepare some easily digestible food. After the maid left, he rose to his feet. I quickly stood up as well, cautiously bending at the waist to stand attentively by his side, ready to serve him. To my surprise, he led me to the dressing table and pressed my shoulders down onto the round stool. He began removing the heavy phoenix crown and hairpins from my head. Your Highness, the maids can attend to this later. We mustn't trouble you with such menial tasks. I immediately made to rise from my seat. His grip tightened as he pressed me back onto the stool. his voice still devoid of emotion. "It's no trouble. Tonight you become my wife. I choose to remove your bridal ornaments myself." For some reason, I felt my cheeks grow warm without realizing it. I remembered our wedding night in the past life. Knight had merely looked at me with undisguised disgust, refusing to exchange even a word. He didn't even share the ceremonial wine with me before storming out. Even with Ezekiel's reserved demeanor now, it didn't feel nearly as unbearable. The nanny brought 2 bowls of fine noodles, one for Ezekiel and me each, explaining they symbolized enduring happiness and lasting prosperity. I thought Ezekiel would leave after finishing the noodles, that his visit was just a formality for our wedding night, but instead, he ordered the servants to prepare his bath, then casually climbed onto the marital bed. Flustered, I dragged my feet through my own bedtime routine, reluctant to join him, finally losing patience. He dismissed the attendants with a wave, rolled off the bed, and unceremoniously scooped me up before tossing me onto the sheets. He's like a completely different man from that indifferent-looking guy moments ago. The smoldering desire in his eyes feels like it could set me ablaze. Such a stark contrast. He chuckled lowly. Who knew my dove could be so shy? Don't worry, I'll teach you slowly. You'll love every moment of it. He pinned me down beneath him. The crimson canopy billowed all night long. Ezekiel's been insatiable these past 2 days, leaving me sore and exhausted every night, falling asleep only at dawn. I don't rise till the sun is high in the sky. Fortunately, I'm the only concubine in the crown prince's palace with no principal wife yet, so I'm spared from morning courtesies. Otherwise I'd probably die without knowing why. The maids couldn't suppress their giggles behind their sleeves while dressing me, burning with embarrassment. I pretended not to understand their teasing expressions. That day, while reading an illustrated book by the window, I overheard 2 young maids chatting as they dusted the ornaments, for, they say the royal consort's already been diagnosed with pregnancy, just married a few days ago and already with child. TSK, hush, he's no longer your highness, just young master now. Their scandal spread throughout the beastfolk clans. A pregnancy's hardly surprising after that. So Thorn had also conceived during that incident, but that's none of my concern. Just as I was engrossed in the illustrated novel's plot, my maid announced the arrival of Thorn, daughter of Chancellor Damien. After some consideration, I instructed the servants to usher her in. She was clever enough to invoke the Damien family name. Had she come merely as Knight's wife, the servants wouldn't have even bothered to announce her. This was less a courtesy visit and more a blatant display of vanity. She fluttered her handkerchief and arrogantly took the host's seat upon entering the hall. Just as the maids were about to reprimand her, I waved them away and seated myself in the subordinate position below Thorn. The corner of her lips curled into a contemptuous smirk. Having witnessed my cautious deference in Damien's household, she now dismissed my elevated status as the crown prince's concubine with utter disdain. "Dear sister." She deliberately stroked her still flat abdomen. "I'm with child, you and His Highness should hurry along." I smiled. "How thoughtful of you, elder sister. The crown prince's vigor requires no concern. Perhaps you should focus on fortifying Sir Knight with tonics, lest he prove inadequate for your needs." Her expression darkened as she sneered. Truly the words of someone unfit for polite company. How utterly vulgar, crude words, but not untrue. Surely even you must see how Knight pales in comparison to the crown prince, be it lineage, looks, or even brute strength. His Highness surpasses him in every regard. Struck where it hurt, she flushed crimson with rage. Having been intimate with Knight and a former crown princess herself, how could she not have made comparisons? Furious, she reached out to strike me. But I caught her wrist and flung her aside. How dare she cause trouble in my domain? I wasn't about to indulge her tantrums. She suddenly let out a cold laugh. What good is nobility now? The real test is who can birth the imperial heir. Her eyes raked over my slender frame as she sneered. Pray your womb doesn't produce a Muriel, sister. Should you disgrace the royal house, the crown prince might order your execution. Then we'll see if you can keep this arrogance of yours. Rather than strutting about my chambers, you'd do better tending that pregnancy. Frankly, I doubt the thing in your belly will ever see daylight. Thorn flew into a rage, lunging at me with fists raised. I sidestepped his attack without batting an eye. "Guards, escort our guest out. This princess requires rest." I turned on my heel and strode toward the bedchamber. The maid waiting at the door immediately scurried in at the command, grabbing Thorn and half-dragging her out. I wiped the spot where I'd touched her hand with my handkerchief and let out a cold laugh. Let her revel in her arrogance a while longer. I want to watch her descend into despair with my own eyes. A month later, I was diagnosed with pregnancy. The crown prince was overjoyed. Ever since conception, I've felt this child in my womb as my little dragon. Perhaps that's the mystical bond between mother and child. Pregnancy demands twice the energy to nourish my core, leaving my body increasingly frail. For reasons unknown, this incarnation's pregnancy brings greater suffering and sharper hunger pangs than the last. The first 2 months were manageable, but as the baby grew inside me, demanding more nutrients each day, I could barely walk normally and even breathing became laborious. Ezekiel was so agitated he couldn't sleep at night, since my pregnancy made me unfit to share his bed. The empress intended to assign him 2 concubines, but he declined them all. The empress flew into a rage. Convinced I'd bewitched him into refusing concubines, as the queen was about to reprimand me, Ezekiel knelt down and pleaded, "Mother, please don't be angry. It's not that I refuse to take concubines, but I have certain unspeakable difficulties. My campaign in the Northwest left me physically impaired. Dove's pregnancy was nothing short of divine mercy. I'm consulting renowned physicians now. Taking concubines can wait until I've recovered." Ezekiel spoke in veiled terms. But the gist was clear, he was impotent. The queen instantly understood, her face alternating between pallor and flush. The crown prince's secret ailment must remain undisclosed. Too many knowing would jeopardize his succession. If word gets out about his inability to produce an heir, wouldn't that be tantamount to an imperial decree of deposition? 5. From then on, the empress voluntarily fell silent. Any concubine who dared mention sending new consorts to the crown prince's household would first face her thunderous wrath. As time passed, no one dared bring it up again, and peace was finally restored. As my pregnancy grew increasingly difficult, Ezekiel grew too concerned to leave me. He eventually pleaded illness to the emperor and took official leave. The queen thought the crown prince was using this opportunity to treat his own ailment, and even considerately covered for him. Freed from political duties, Ezekiel stayed by my side every single day. He personally fed me meals, attended to my bedtime, and grew increasingly anxious watching me lose weight daily, as if he wished he could bear the pregnancy himself. The palace matrons would whisper to me when Ezekiel wasn't around, marveling they'd never seen a husband dote on his wife so devotedly. Indeed, he is my beloved husband, and my heart swells with sweetness and joy. Perhaps this is what it means to have chosen the right person. I heard that ever since my elder sister became pregnant, our parents would frequently visit her, bringing either precious nourishing tonics or all sorts of amusing trinkets to lift her spirits. Yet they've never once come to see me. The servants whispered that Thorn had become radiant with pregnancy, her feminine allure so potent it could be sensed beyond the manor walls. Perhaps her inner elixir was feeding on the fetus's vitality to sustain her. Meanwhile, I'd become gaunt to the point of deformity, sunken cheeks protruding over a skeletal frame, my grotesquely swollen belly a monstrous contrast. In my previous life, Knight never once visited my courtyard after I conceived. Despite his frail health, he kept several stunning concubines and spent his days frolicking with them. A classic case of all talk and no action. Once he caught sight of my pregnant form and froze in shock, stammering, "How could you become so repulsive?" From then on, he avoided me like the plague. In our past life, the only time we ever shared intimacy was that night when my mother drugged me with aphrodisiac wine. But my current state is even worse than in my past life, undoubtedly more hideous and terrifying. I hid from Ezekiel, fearing his rejection. Yet he saw right through me and pulled me into his embrace. "Dove, don't fret. The child in your womb is mine as well. How could I ever reject you for carrying my own?" His eyes brimmed with tender devotion and deep affection. Indeed, he was never like Knight to begin with. I shouldn't have been so petty. Before I knew it, the day of my eldest sister's delivery arrived. I couldn't help but wonder what she would bring into this world this time, so I sent a quick-witted maid to gather news, instructing her to report back immediately. 6. Ezekiel chuckled. "You're about to give birth yourself, yet you still have the energy to poke into others' affairs," I retorted, "only because your elder sister is the one you fancy. I was just gathering intel for you." Ezekiel flushed with discomfort. "Don't talk nonsense. You're the only one I love. She's my sister-in-law. This isn't a joking matter." Who knew even the crown prince could blush from embarrassment? Amused, I couldn't resist teasing him further when suddenly the baby inside me kicked, making my belly ripple like waves. "Quick, feel this, he's moving." I eagerly grabbed Ezekiel's hand and placed it on my belly, watching his expression shift from astonishment to pure joy. "You've no idea how much your mother's suffered carrying you." Ezekiel pretended to scold my belly. "If you misbehave after you're born, I'll spank you good." The baby in my womb seemed to hear us, kicking even more vigorously, counting the days. "I'll be holding him in my arms in just 1 month. Soon I'll be reunited with my little dragon." Just as Ezekiel and I were marveling at the baby's movements, the maid I'd sent out came rushing back, completely out of breath. She's given birth." The little maid was gasping for breath, so I quickly had another servant girl pour her a cup of water. She gulped it down in one go, then panted twice before speaking. The whole court's buzzing about it. "Chancellor Damien's daughter birthed some pitch-black monstrosity. Not quite a snake nor an eel, covered in scales, but its head, just a fleshy lump with no eyes or mouth, utterly horrifying. After letting out a few cries, the creature drew its last breath. I heard the prince, no, pardon me, I heard Sir Knight ordered his servants to burn it. Thick, foul-smelling black smoke rose from the pyre, so putrid it made people retch. The young mistress was overjoyed at first upon hearing her newborn had scales, but when she learned of the child's death, she collapsed on the spot. A chill ran down my spine upon hearing this. From what the maid described, Thorn's offspring seemed more like the result of a dark curse. I'd expected her to deliver a stillborn at worst, never imagined she'd birth an actual monstrosity. Thinking I was frightened, Ezekiel scolded the maid. Must you go into such gruesome details? Simply say she bore a monster. Should the princess consort suffer any distress from your tale, you'll answer to me. I quickly stopped him from making baseless accusations. Your Highness, her words didn't unsettle me. I merely grieve for my elder sister's fate. This won't affect the child I carry. Leave us now. I wish to speak with His Highness privately. With that, I dismissed the teary-eyed maid. After the maids withdrew, I composed myself and said gravely to Ezekiel, "Don't you find Thorn's offspring extraordinarily abnormal?" Ezekiel shook his head. In our beast-kin continent, births have always been diverse. Women deliver pythons, serpents, even eels. It's simply a matter of individual destiny. But this isn't just a monster. It has scales and emits a nauseating stench when burned. I once read an ancient text at Damien's Place about a ratfolk witchcraft that grants men exceptional virility. The price is flesh and blood. If unwilling to pay themselves, they may substitute their own offspring. Ezekiel frowned. You mean Knight? He sacrificed his own bloodline just for bedroom prowess? I nodded. I can't leave the palace gates. If you see him, observe his complexion closely. If he appears unusually radiant, he must have struck some shady deal with the Rat clan. Truth be told, if I were a man, I'd probably understand Knight's dilemma to some extent. Thorn's striking beauty and insatiable desires exuded such primal femininity that Knight burned with constant lust for her. Yet Knight's frail constitution left him unable to perform. Desperate to keep his beloved, he resorted to sacrificing his own offspring in exchange for physical prowess. He probably thought their sibling bond made this pregnancy insignificant. Losing one child just meant they could try for another. Little did he know Thorn married him solely to breed dragon pythons, with no real affection involved. The sole benefit was letting his eldest sister's inner core absorb more of his vital essence for nourishment. A month has flown by in the blink of an eye. Lately my belly keeps tightening up. It feels like the baby could come any moment now. I can't even bring myself to care about Thorn's affairs anymore. Nothing matters more than my little dragon. Ezekiel had the midwife and royal physician on standby early, and he himself wouldn't dare leave my side for a second. That day, I was struck by excruciating abdominal pain. My past life experience told me labor had begun. The entire Crown Prince's palace descended into organized chaos. I writhed in agony on the bed, too exhausted to even cry out. The royal physician inserted countless acupuncture needles and forced ginseng tea down my throat before I regained a sliver of strength. The labor pains lasted from dawn till midnight when the midwife finally said the baby was crowning and urged me to push harder. The royal physician inserted more acupuncture needles at my higa point to ease the pain and restore my strength. Ezekiel was pacing frantically. His anxiety so overwhelming that he lost his human form and transformed into a serpent flying agitatedly through the air. At the break of dawn, I finally gave birth to my precious serpent child. Oh no, in this life he's not even a dragon serpent, but an actual divine dragon. The midwife stood frozen for a long moment before finally wrapping the golden dragon infant in swaddling clothes. Trembling, she announced to the Crown Prince, "Your Highness, the mistress has birthed what appears to be a dragon. Forgive this old servant's ignorance, but would your Highness please come see for yourself?" Without awaiting the prince's orders, servants were already sprinting toward the emperor's palace to deliver the astonishing news. Ezekiel cradled the radiant golden dragon infant, utterly dumbfounded. Standing by my bedside with trembling voice, he whispered, "Dove, is this truly our child? Our serpent clan only ever produces dragon serpents at most. How could we possibly have birthed a divine dragon?" The royal astrologer just examined him and confirmed every feature matches the ancient records. "This is undoubtedly a celestial dragon." I reached out my hand. Ezekiel carefully placed Longbao into my arms. Looking into Longbao's clear eyes and those achingly familiar features, I knew this was my Longbao from the past life. My tears fell onto his little face. The little dragon wriggled in my arms, probably trying to comfort me. Though he couldn't speak yet, a sudden commotion erupted outside, followed by the eunuch's announcement, "His Majesty approaches." Ezekiel hurried from the inner chamber to the main hall to receive the emperor. I clung tightly to the baby dragon, refusing to let go. "Mother," little dragon suddenly piped up in his childish voice, startling me. "My child, in our past life I failed you, letting them flay you alive." My voice choked with sobs. Transforming into a child, little dragon embraced me. Mother, that was a trial I needed to endure to ascend from serpent dragon to divine dragon, and I must thank you. Without your bodily nourishment, I could never have achieved draconic ascension, so that's how it was. Yet he endured the agony of having his tendons pulled and scales scraped. Just the thought of it still makes my chest ache so fiercely I can barely breathe. When the emperor ordered the eunuch to bring the dragon treasure for his inspection, the little dragon reverted to its newborn form, obediently closing its eyes as if in deep slumber. The emperor's hearty laughter echoed from the outer chamber. He exclaimed repeatedly, "Splendid, magnificent, divine, this is heaven-sent fortune for our beast-wild continent. Eunuch who, issue an imperial decree immediately. This sacred dragon shall be named Auspice, granted the title of imperial crown grandson, and bestowed with golden treasures and scrolls on the 8th day of next month." After a pause, he continued, "Dove shall be named Crown Princess Consort. The investiture ceremony will also be held on the 8th of next month, a double celebration." The Crown Prince was the first to respond. "Your son humbly thanks your Majesty's grace on Dove's behalf. She remains frail after childbirth, but once recovered, I shall bring her to kneel in gratitude before you." Returning to the inner chambers, the Crown Prince couldn't conceal his joy. "Dove, you heard it. His Majesty has decreed you shall be my princess consort." I nodded with a smile. "Indeed, I've also heard His Majesty intends to name Longbao as Crown Prince. Doesn't that make you uneasy?" "What unease?" "The possibility that His Majesty might bypass tradition and name Longbao as his direct successor in the previous life." The emperor deposed the crown prince and directly decreed Lombao's ascension to the throne. Though we can't foresee how this life will unfold, I'd hate to see father and son turn against each other over the throne. Ezekiel burst into laughter. "Nothing would please me more. Once the kingdom's in that boy's hands, we'll roam free. I hear Foxkin country has breathtaking landscapes, Snow Leopard Kingdom boasts extraordinary wonders, and wolf territories offer endless delicacies." Pulling me into his embrace, he murmured, "It's not that I crave power. None of my brothers are fit to rule. That's why I contended for the crown. If our furry inherits the throne, nothing could make me happier. After all, he's our child." He kissed my forehead and cooed, "Get well soon, darling. We'll have our second and third little treasures." I've deployed the crown prince's most elite shadow guard to protect Longbao, ensuring he's watched every moment from the shadows. Though Thorn can't enter the palace now, I'm still taking precautions just in case. Ezekiel told me when the palace eunuch brought the happy news to Damien's household, his parents merely accepted the decree with indifference, not even bothering to tip the messenger. Upon returning to the palace, the eunuch naturally reported every detail of the father and mother's reactions to the emperor. The imperial heir was the emperor's most treasured golden grandson. He practically wanted to proclaim it to the heavens so all would know of the divine dragon's descent upon the royal house. Yet the Damien family, as maternal relatives, responded with surprising indifference. This planted seeds of displeasure in the emperor's heart. Within 2 months, the emperor found a pretext to strip the father of his chancellor position without reassignment, merely stating they'd reconsider when a suitable post became available. Thorn nearly lost his mind when he learned I'd given birth to a divine dragon in this lifetime. She wrecked everything in the manor before relentlessly pursuing Night for constant mating. Night's robust physique, originally obtained through dark magic, quickly deteriorated under the elder sister's ceaseless demands day and night. 7. But this time he couldn't even seek the Rat clan's help. He was bedridden with illness. Fortunately, Thorn was pregnant again. She was extremely attentive to this pregnancy, hiring an outside veterinarian twice daily to monitor the fetus's development through pulse diagnosis. As her belly grew day by day, Knight's condition steadily deteriorated until he could no longer swallow even broth, his breathing becoming increasingly labored. Had Thorn devoted some attention to Night then and supplemented his treatment with proper medication, he might have lived several more years, albeit in weakened health. Yet Thorn turned a blind eye to his suffering, leaving him to waste away without even sending a servant to tend to him. Night had long been stripped of his noble status. The palace attendants assigned to him were dismissed, his royal stipends revoked, leaving the vast estate sustained solely by Thorn's dowry, now abandoned by Thorn. He lay waiting for death in the hollow emptiness of the great house. On the day his eldest sister went into labor, Night drew his last breath. This labor proved far more agonizing than her last, yet after 3 days and nights of struggle, she delivered only a writhing mass of tiny white maggots. The servants fled in terror at the sight. The eldest sister took one look at the squirming creatures crawling across her legs and belly, then collapsed in a dead faint. When she awoke again, word reached her that the Night had perished. She muttered to herself, "Why? Why can't I bear a dragon serpent even after wedding the azure serpent? Could that wretched woman be the one destined to breed such creatures? She suddenly struggled to sit up. No, impossible. How could that low-born wench possibly bear a dragon serpent? It must be coincidence. I must find the crown prince. I will marry the crown prince. The servants whispered she'd gone mad, a widow daring to covet marriage with the crown prince. Yet when the palace matron reported the intelligence she'd bribed from servants, my guard went up immediately. Thorn is pure madness incarnate. Last life, she lurked near Lombao's seclusion to murder him. Who knows what atrocities she'll commit this time? I instructed the crown prince to reinforce patrols within the estate, paying particular attention to goods purchased outside the palace or personnel delivering items from beyond the palace walls. Sure enough, just days after Lombao received the golden treasure and imperial edict, a group of embroideresses delivering needlework to the palace caught my attention. Her disguise was actually quite convincing, but I recognized her scent all too well. Among the plainly dressed embroideresses, Thorn kept her head down with her hair in a matronly bun, her face darkened and wrinkled, a remarkably realistic transformation. I quietly ordered the shadow guards to monitor Thorn's movements, with instructions to apprehend her immediately should she dare to separate from the embroideress group. Sure enough, within moments the shadow guards apprehended the sneaking Thorn at Dragon's abode where Longbao resided. The guards pinned her mercilessly to the ground, seated on a chair brought by the chamberlain. I looked down at her and commanded, "Search her." Thorn frantically batted away the chamberlain's groping hands, shrieking hysterically at me, "You wretched dove! How dare you humiliate me like this? I'm your elder sister. 30 slaps for your insolence." I ordered the matron standing nearby. The matron rolled up her sleeves, grabbed Thorn by the collar, and began delivering alternating slaps. Thorn struggled to curse me, but could only manage muffled whimpers. The chamberlain found a slender divine whip hidden in her undergarments, the very whip that had bound Dragon Treasure and stripped him of his tendons in their past life. Without that divine whip, Thorn wouldn't have stood a chance against Dragon Treasure. I tucked the whip into my sleeve, a true treasure, though I longed to destroy it. The sacred weapon bore no guilt, the sin lay with its wielder. After 30 brutal slaps, Thorn's cheeks swelled crimson, her eyes burning with venomous hatred as she glared at me. The shadow guards pinned her entire body down, leaving her utterly immobilized. Why? How could you possibly birth a divine dragon? What vile trick did you use? Did you steal my destiny as payment? That dragon should have been mine. Her eyes burned with fury, her entire being consumed by madness. I scoffed coldly. Has elder sister truly never known about the golden cores within us? She froze momentarily before shrieking. What golden cores? The elixir mother obtained for us. Mine was the dragonborn core, while yours was the siren's allure. But your elixir doesn't just drain men's vitality, it consumes your unborn child's very essence. Thorn collapsed to his knees in shock, unable to believe what he'd heard. No, that can't be. Mother adored me. How could she possibly? Why not? We're twins. Yet I birthed divine dragons while you spawn abominations. Go ask the Damien family if you doubt me. Thorn wore an expression of utter disbelief as he was thrown out. In her heart, her parents' love for her knew no bounds. How could they ever harm her? 3 days later, a servant from the Damien household came bearing tragic news. The message came, both father and mother had perished in the flames, their remains reduced to charred bones. I gave some silver to the chief eunuch to arrange for the collection of my parents' ashes, then have them buried on any random hillside. At least this repays their kindness in raising me. Thorn set the fire. When she confronted mother, the royal astrologer's final warning suddenly dawned on her, collapsing to the ground in despair. She wailed that everything was her fault. Hearing mother's confession, she naturally concluded mother was the reason she couldn't bear a divine dragon. In a fit of rage, she set Damien's house ablaze and calmly walked away. Little did she know, this marked the beginning of her living hell. Having murdered a court official, Thorn became a wanted fugitive citywide. Though her father was temporarily stripped of office by the emperor, he remained a ranking government official. She was forced into a life of constant hiding. Her stunning beauty and intoxicating feminine scent drove hordes of wandering serpent demons to compete for her favors. Her inner core absorbed the vital essence of these men, enhancing her allure with each encounter. This endless cycle transformed her into a woman who belonged to all yet belonged to none. Perhaps this was her destined fate all along, rather than killing her outright. Watching her suffer daily under the torment of those vile serpents, stripped of all future and hope, would be far sweeter vengeance for murdering my dragon child and me in our past life. Time flew, and 6 years passed in the blink of an eye. My precious dragon has grown into a graceful youth. The emperor once again stripped Ezekiel of his crown prince title this lifetime, though it was at Ezekiel's own request. Now the emperor personally mentors the young dragon in state affairs. preparing to hand over the throne when he comes of age at 10. After giving birth to Dragon Treasure, my inner elixir dissipated completely, and my suppressed beauty gradually returned. Though I know I may never bear another child as extraordinary as Dragon Treasure, I'll cherish every child Ezekiel and I are blessed with. During our leisure at home, we began journeying through various beast realms. At last, in this lifetime, I've met the right person and fulfilled my heart's desires. How could the word carefree ever do it justice? Story 2. A terrifying high temperature has struck, causing the water and electricity supply to be cut off, and work and school to be suspended. At first, everyone received delivered water and food every 2 days. However, when there was no supply of materials for 4 consecutive days, people started to go crazy. Does anyone have water? Can you sell me some? I'll pay 10,000 yuan. I just killed my dog with my own hands. I hope I can survive a few more days by relying on its blood and flesh. The originally quiet community became lively. The door of a single girl in the neighboring building was violently broken down in the middle of the night. Her supplies were looted, and she died a tragic death at home. It was just because she was kind enough to give a few bottles of water to her neighbor, which exposed her situation. When I felt soft-hearted, Wind stopped me and said, "Josephine, we have to ensure our own survival first." 1. After staying up all night to finish the project plan, I had just lain down for less than 10 minutes when a loud bang scared me so much that I sat up straight away. Then I heard the car alarms going off one after another in the community. I opened the window and took a look. A blast of hot air rushed towards me, and my face felt burning hot, as if I had stuck a warm palace patch on it. Sure enough, it was another tire explosion caused by the high temperature. I couldn't remember how many times this had happened this week. I quickly closed the window, stood under the air conditioner and felt a gust of cool wind. I couldn't help but swear, "Damn it, this is crazy. It's only a little past 7 o'clock and it's already this hot. I don't know what's going on this year." In previous years, the temperature didn't rise until after the Dragon Boat Festival. I took out my phone and checked. There were still half a month left until the Dragon Boat Festival, but the temperature was already 38 degrees Celsius. There was no way I could fall asleep. Fortunately, after finishing the project plan, the company gave me a half-month vacation, so I decided to buy some things for my new house today. I've been here for almost half a month and have been working overtime every day, so there are still many things I haven't bought. After washing up and getting fully prepared, I called Aditi and was ready to go to the supermarket. As soon as I went downstairs, there was not even a breath of wind. I could feel the heat of the ground even through my thick-soled platform shoes. The soil on the lawn was cracked by the sun, and a few grasshoppers were jumping around, as if they were drunkards. The heat made me irritable. Fortunately, the driver master had the air conditioner in the car turned on fully. Sitting in the car, I took out my phone and started browsing short videos. I saw a blogger complaining that the shrimp and fish in his fish pond were cooked by the high temperature. The comments section was also very interesting. Report your location quickly. I'll bring my own dipping sauce to help you deal with it. The blogger can consider opening an outdoor buffet. 9 yuan per person for all you can eat. I was almost laughed to death by the talent of this group of netizens. It wasn't until I saw a netizen named Change When Odd remain the same when even say, "This strange weather definitely means that the end of the world is coming. Everyone, hurry up and stock up on supplies." A group of people scolded him in the comments, "You're crazy." Somehow, I clicked on this person's homepage. It turned out that he had the same IP address as me, and he had also posted a doomsday self-help guide. The driver heard the sound from my video and started chatting with me familiarly. The weather this year is really abnormal. The battery life of my electric car is half less than usual. Looking at the distorted heat waves in the air and the wilted trees outside the window, I said jokingly, "It's really abnormal. If this goes on, the high temperature apocalypse is coming." But I never expected that this joking remark would come true a few days later, too. As soon as I entered the supermarket, I started shopping like crazy. I filled 4 shopping carts with meat, vegetables, fruits, rice, noodles, and cooking oil. After all, I don't plan to go out for the next half month. It's too hot. It's not excessive to buy a dozen cases of water, a dozen cases of beverages, as well as ice cream and popsicles in such hot weather. Right, when passing by the home appliance area, I saw that the cold fans and large freezers were on sale, although I already have an air conditioner and a refrigerator at home. It's a loss not to take advantage of the bargain, so I just kept buying. The more I bought, the more excited I became. This is probably a woman's nature, but when I saw the mountains of supplies in front of me, I was a bit puzzled. How could I get them all back? At this time, a young man came over and said, "Sister, we are having an event today. The small household solar generator is 30% off, and we can also provide free home delivery for you, if you place an order now. I can arrange for the master to deliver all your items back together." I gritted my teeth and bought it. Maybe I could use it when the power was cut off. The young man was nice and even gave me a few extra power banks. It was already noon when I left the supermarket. In less than 5 minutes, my phone gave a high temperature warning, 42 degrees Celsius. I couldn't stop sweating while standing in the shade, and the back of my clothes was completely soaked with sweat. Looking at the masters moving the things, the sweat on their foreheads was like rain. And the sweat droplets evaporated instantly when they fell on the ground. Finally, all the items were loaded. I couldn't wait to go home and turn on the air conditioner. As soon as I got downstairs, I saw a pickup truck parked at the entrance of the unit. A man, whose body was shining with sweat from the sun, was moving things box by box. The sweat-soaked undershirt stuck to his body, and the outline of his abdominal muscles was faintly visible. With such a good figure, he must not be bad-looking. The distorted heat waves and the sweat droplets on my eyelashes made my vision a bit blurred, and I couldn't see his face clearly, but I guessed blindly that he should be very handsome, so I took a sneak photo to admire it at home. The delivery master was very efficient. In a short while, he helped me move everything in. I gave him a bottle of ice-cold beverage and gave him a 5-star rating. It was really not easy, in this weather. I guessed that after delivering my goods, his underwear would be wet 3 times. In the elevator, I noticed that the handsome guy in the pickup truck was actually the resident of 1702 upstairs from me. 3. With the air conditioner on, I felt a great sense of accomplishment after putting everything in order. Now the refrigerating compartment of the refrigerator is full of vegetables, fruits, and beverages, and the freezing compartment is stuffed with 4 drawers full of ice cream. The newly bought large freezer is filled with beef, mutton, shrimp, and several chickens. I took out an ice cream, lay on the sofa, and enjoyed the coolness without restraint. Just then, my mother called. "Josephine, when are you coming back?" Jade next door said she has a nephew. Damn it, here comes the nagging about getting married again. I shouldn't have answered. I quickly changed the subject. "Mom, it's hot recently. You and Dad don't run around. Turn on the air conditioner when you need to. Don't be stingy with the electricity bill." But my mother is an old hand. "Don't change the subject, my child. How old are you already? Your father and I are in the orchard on the mountain. It's very cool here. You should come back as soon as possible. Do you hear me? Mom, I have a project recently and I've been working overtime every day. I didn't sleep all night yesterday. I'll take a nap first and we can talk tomorrow." After saying that, I hung up the phone immediately. Sleepiness hit, so I decided to catch up on some sleep. I hadn't slept for long when I was woken up by the knock on the door. I opened the door and saw Felix, the property manager. "Miss Josephine, affected by the continuous high temperature, there will be staggered water outages starting tonight. We have sent the specific arrangements in the group. To express our apologies, we have brought you mung beans for relieving summer heat and huishing. And we have also provided water storage buckets." Felix put down the things and left. I looked at the back of his shirt, which was completely soaked with sweat, and thought that this job was really difficult. I opened the property management group and saw the water usage schedule. For my unit, the water supply is from 7 to 9 in the morning and from 9 to 10 in the evening every day, and there is no water supply at other times. After moving the water bucket to the bathroom, I filled both the bathtub and the bucket with water. Then I called the purified water company and ordered 10 large barrels of water at once. Finally, I felt a sense of security. My stomach also started to protest, so I quickly ordered a takeout and waited to be fed by the delivery guy while eating an ice cream. After a few minutes, a huge explosion scared me so much that I fell off the sofa. I ran to the window and saw flames shooting up into the sky across the community. The whole sky was dyed orange-red. There was a fire. My heart was pounding because of the sirens of the fire trucks and ambulances, and I was a bit panicked. I hoped that no one was injured, for I sat back on the sofa. Suddenly, the room fell into darkness. The power was cut off. The property management group was already in an uproar. The power is cut off at this critical moment. The child is still doing his homework. How can we live without the air conditioner when the power is off? Felix from the property management replied immediately, "Dear residents, please stay calm. There was a fire in the opposite community, and the power lines in our community were damaged. We have contacted someone to repair them, and the power will be restored to normal soon. If you need anything, please make a list in the group, and we will send candles first. The property management fee in our community is very high, but it's actually worth it because their service attitude is very good and attentive." I looked at my phone. It was exactly 22:00. And the temperature was 42 degrees Celsius. I turned on the flashlight of my phone, found the rechargeable table lamp I bought before, and the room was filled with light again. I took out the handheld small fan, and the heat was finally relieved a little. Just then, a message from the delivery guy came. Hello, rabbit doesn't eat grass. The rubber ring of my electric bike tire melted, and I fell and got injured. I may not be able to deliver your meal, and I will compensate you according to the price. Afraid that I wouldn't believe him, he also attached a photo. His legs and arms were a large patch of red, and he should have been scalded by the high temperature of the ground after falling. I replied, go to the hospital quickly. You don't need to compensate, I will report it to the platform. I took out bread and milk from the refrigerator and read the news while eating. There was continuous high temperature all over the country, even the highest temperature in Mo reached 40 degrees Celsius. There was also a trending news. Several outdoor power workers fainted from heatstroke while repairing the circuit and unfortunately died due to untimely rescue. Netizens left comments one after another, saying that they were ordinary heroes, and attached pictures of daisies to show their respect. Suddenly, the words of that netizen named change when odd, remain the same when even popped into my mind. Could it be that the end of the world is really coming? Well, it's no use thinking too much. I got into the bathtub and took a comfortable bath. I didn't pour out the bath water because it could still be used to flush the toilet. I went back to the bedroom, opened the window to sleep. But there was not even a breath of wind. Instead, all that came in was hot air. In desperation, I had to close the window. I connected the power bank to the handheld small fan and placed it on the bedside table. I fell asleep groggily and had a dream all night. I dreamed that I was roasted by 9 suns and finally died of dehydration. 5. Early the next morning, the power finally came back on. I turned on the air conditioner immediately, made myself a sandwich, and brewed a cup of iced Americano. I started the second day of my vacation and took the time to charge all the power banks. After thinking about it, I opened the takeout app again and placed an order for 10 handheld small fans and 10 power banks. Who knows when the power will be cut off again? I turned on the TV and planned to watch a drama, but my mother's consecutive 60-second voice messages came one after another. The main idea was that I had to go on a blind date quickly. The blind date partner she mentioned yesterday happened to be in the urban area. She had already sent me the person's WeChat business card and also required me to send her a screenshot of the friend edition. Otherwise, she would come and force me to go on a blind date in person. I took a look at the other person's WeChat nickname and was stunned. It was change when odd, remain the same when even. I opened the homepage of the change when odd, remain the same when even I followed on the short video platform yesterday, and the profile picture was the same. What a coincidence. After thinking about it, I sent a friend edition request, ready to find out. The other party approved the verification quickly and sent a message first. Hello, my name is Wind. Wind as in the gentle breeze. I replied politely. Hello, my name is Josephine. I looked at the time, it was 8:30. Sorry, Mr. Wind, I need to go and get some water first. Because of the high temperature, our community has staggered water supply, and the water will be cut off in half an hour. He replied to me too, this is really interesting. While getting water, I took a look at the weather forecast. It was 48 degrees Celsius, it was hotter than yesterday, and a push news caught my attention. In the Central Park of Chuan City, 3 homeless people died from being scalded by the high temperature of the ground, suddenly. The topic of the high-temperature apocalypse exploded on the trending list, and related remarks emerged one after another like mushrooms after rain. Wind sent me another message. Miss Josephine, I suggest you stock up on more supplies. This high temperature may be a doomsday disaster. If it's difficult to buy, I can give you some. I was just about to reply to him when the water in my house suddenly stopped, and the air conditioner also stopped. The water and power were cut off. A sense of unease suddenly welled up in my heart, and I gulped down a few mouthfuls of ice water. Josephine, it'll be okay. 6. I curled up on the sofa and looked at the messages in the property management group. Felix, why is the power cut off again? We'll die of heat without the air conditioner. Felix, it's not even 9 o'clock yet. Why is the water cut off? I haven't filled up the water yet. Felix. Felix replied and explained one by one while enduring everyone's complaints. Then someone came out to support Felix. Neighbors, don't keep calling Felix, it should be caused by the continuous high temperature. We should wait patiently for the property management to repair it. If you look for Felix, it's not only useless but also delays the repair progress. If you need water or heat stroke prevention medicine, you can come to me, and I'll give it for free. I was shocked because this person's group nickname was 1702 Wind. It turned out that my blind date partner was actually that handsome guy in the pickup truck. Could it be any more coincidental? When I was about to get up to get an ice cream to cool down, suddenly a wave of dizziness, nausea, and tinnitus hit me, and then I lost consciousness. I didn't know how long I had been lying on the ground when I was woken up by the rapid knocking on the door. I got up from the ground and it took me 2 minutes to reach the door. It was the delivery guy who saved me. My power banks and small fans were finally delivered. I was so excited that tears streamed down my face. I thanked him like crazy, and the guy was so scared that he turned around and left. I used all my strength to tear open the bag, took out the small fan and turned the wind power to the maximum. Then I drank a bottle of Wuxingxingqi Shui in one gulp. I took out a bottle of frozen mineral water from the freezer, wrapped it in a towel and held it in my arms. I wet a towel and put it on my forehead and sat on the sofa. My symptoms were slightly relieved, and I took out my phone to check the weather forecast. At 10:33, the temperature was 52 degrees Celsius, and the indoor temperature was 45 degrees Celsius. I kept refreshing the weather forecast on my phone. At 10:35, the temperature was 53 degrees Celsius, and the indoor temperature was 45 degrees Celsius. By 11:04, the temperature had reached 59 degrees Celsius, and the indoor temperature was 48 degrees Celsius. I walked to the window and opened it to get some air, but what surged in the air was the suffocating heat wave and sweltering heat. I couldn't help but wonder if I would really die in the summer just like in my dream. No, Josephine, you have to stay calm, you have to stay alive. 7. I took 3 small fans and went to the kitchen. Since there was no electricity, the range hood couldn't be used. I found a pack of hot pot base and cooked some meat slices and vegetables. I prepared the dipping sauce and decided to have spicy hot pot. After half an hour in the kitchen, I was already soaked through. I carried the cooked spicy hot pot back to the living room, looking at the dishes that I usually loved the most. I had no appetite at the moment, but I forced myself to finish eating because I wanted to stay alive and needed to be full of energy. By 15:07, the outdoor temperature had already exceeded 65 degrees, and the indoor temperature was already 43 degrees. Sweating profusely, I walked to the bathroom, without caring that the water had been used before. I got into the water without taking off my clothes. After soaking for half an hour, I felt a little more comfortable. I picked up my phone and called my mom. Mom, how are you and Dad? Is there electricity and water at home? My mom said calmly, fortunately, your dad bought a lot of water and instant noodles a few days ago because they were cheap. Now your dad and I are in the basement. It's not too hot. How about you? I let out a sigh of relief. I'm fine. If you feel any discomfort, you must let me know immediately. After saying that, I hung up the phone and opened the news again. All units across the country have stopped work and taken vacations, and schools have suspended classes. In many areas, helicopters have already started delivering supplies. At this moment, I knew that the high-temperature apocalypse had really arrived. I took out my phone and sent a message to Wind. Wind, I'll tell you a secret. Actually, I live downstairs from you. Are you interested in having dinner together tonight? Since the end of the world is coming, I don't want to be reserved anymore. I want to have a relationship, even if it's just for these last few days. After waiting anxiously for 5 minutes, he replied. I smiled and sent him a picture, which was a photo I secretly took of him moving supplies yesterday. He replied, see you tonight, as expected of a science major. He was very concise with his words, living up to his nickname. I don't know if it was a stroke of luck or the high efficiency of the workers. At 16:05, when the outdoor temperature reached 68 degrees, the electricity came back on. 8. I excitedly turned on the air conditioner and set the temperature to the lowest, 13 degrees, after more than 2 hours of operating at the maximum air volume. At 18:35, the indoor temperature returned to a comfortable 25 degrees. I changed into a comfortable long dress and was ready to start cooking. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Wind. I quickly opened the door, and he handed me the bag in his hand. I brought you some medicine for reducing heat and relieving summer heat, as well as ice cream. He was quite thoughtful. Not bad. I smiled, took it, and thanked him. Then I asked him to rest in the living room while I went to cook. But he followed me into the kitchen. Miss Josephine, let me help you. I smiled softly. You don't have to be so formal, just call me Josephine. During the process of cooking, we gradually got to know each other better, chatting from our respective jobs to our hobbies. He is a genuine top student, who loves studying astronomy and geography. Now he works as a geography teacher at a university. Spicy crayfish, stir-fried green vegetables, steamed scallops with garlic vermicelli. In an hour, we cooked 4 dishes. I originally wanted to cook a few more dishes, but he said that in this situation, it was better to focus on saving resources. It was already 9 o'clock when we finished dinner. I remembered that it was time to get some water. He hurried home, and I also went into the bathroom to fill the bathtub with water. Just as the bathtub was filled, the power went out again. I turned on the flashlight of my phone and went back to the living room, after persisting for 40 minutes. The remaining cool air from the air conditioner had been completely exhausted, and the room temperature returned to the terrifying 43 degrees. In less than 5 minutes, my whole body was soaked in sweat again. I took out 2 small fans, found some water that had been frozen into ice cubes from the freezer, placed the water bottle in front of the fans, and sat on the floor. A trace of cool wind blew over, and I finally felt comfortable. This method was taught to me by Wind. Thinking of this, I took out my phone and was about to send him a message when I saw that everyone in the property management group was chatting again. Everyone can come to the underground garage. It's very cool there. I'm blowing the air conditioner in the car right now. It's so comfortable. I sent a message to Wind. Wind, let's go to the garage to cool down together. He replied to me quickly, no, there are too many people in the garage now. It's easy to cause trouble if we go there. While I was still wondering, his second message came. There are a lot of people in the garage, and everyone is turning on the car's air conditioner. The exhaust gas will gradually raise the temperature in the garage, and the carbon monoxide content will also increase. It's very dangerous. Then he sent me some news about carbon monoxide poisoning, and I immediately gave up the idea. 9. I woke up at 6 o'clock the next morning because it was really too hot, and the bedsheet was soaked with my sweat. I cooked eggs and instant noodles and took a photo to send to Wind. While waiting for his reply, I habitually checked the weather forecast. The temperature had now soared to 60 degrees. After having breakfast, I stood by the window and looked outside. A person wearing a property management uniform downstairs suddenly burst into flames. I was so scared that I was stunned. I saw that person take off his clothes and throw them on the ground. Rolling around on the lawn, with tears in my eyes, I took out my phone and called 120, but the 120 operator said that because of the extremely high temperature, the tires of the vehicles would melt as soon as they were on the road, and they couldn't send out an ambulance at all. I don't know where I got the courage from. I wet a towel quilt and put it in a plastic bag, and then carried a small household fire extinguisher and went downstairs. At that moment, I completely forgot about the high temperature and heat outside. All I could think about was that this was a living person, and I couldn't just watch him die. Fortunately, the elevator was always supported by a backup generator, and I reached downstairs in less than 3 minutes. I rushed out of the unit door and draped the wet towel quilt over that person, and then sprayed the burning clothes beside him with the fire extinguisher. I saw that his whole body was blistered from the burns, and he kept screaming. I took out my phone and called Felix to request support. Soon, Felix came with 2 other people and carried the person away on a stretcher. At this time, I finally felt the pain of my skin being roasted. My whole body was burning hot and it hurt a lot. Enduring the pain, I quickly rushed back into the building and saw Wind at the door of my house. At that moment, I didn't know if it was because of the pain or fear. I threw away the fire extinguisher in my hand and hugged him and burst into tears. He didn't say anything, just gently patted my back. After about 3 minutes, my emotions calmed down. After entering the door, I told him about the experience just now. He looked at me seriously and said, "Josephine, you're really amazing. You've impressed me." At noon, Wind cooked the meal. There was 1 meat dish, 1 vegetable dish, and rice. It looked, smelled, and tasted great. Although it was very hot, I had an unexpectedly good appetite and ate a whole bowl of rice. Both my phone and his phone rang at the same time. It should be a message from the property management group. Dear residents, we have just received the news that due to the influence of the high temperature, the water and electricity supply in the whole city will be cut off starting today. The official staff are already making all-out efforts to repair them. We haven't received information on how long it will take to restore the supply. During this period, we will deliver living supplies to everyone once every 2 days. Please don't panic. This message made everyone in the group go crazy. 10. I looked at Wind with a solemn expression and said, "Wind, I have a household solar generator at home, but I've read the instruction manual for 2 days and still don't know how to use it. Do you know how?" He looked at me excitedly. "Josephine, you're really farsighted. I can figure it out." Wind moved the generator to the window of the living room. In less than an hour, the generator started working, and the air conditioner at home was turned on again. The room temperature gradually started to drop from 45 degrees, and the long-lost coolness made me excited. After thinking about it, I said to Wind, who was about to leave, "Wind, if you don't mind, you can stay at my place recently. It will be more comfortable. And my house is big anyway." Half an hour later, Wind started moving the supplies he had stored at home to my house. He even brought 2 baseball bats. I joked, "Wind, although my house is spacious, it might be a bit difficult to play baseball here." After arranging all the supplies, he replied seriously with a solemn expression, "Josephine, at this time, although natural disasters are terrifying, human nature is even more vulnerable to testing." That night, in the air-conditioned room, We happily ate hot pot and drank ice-cold beer. I also had a sound sleep at night. This was the most comfortable and secure day I had since the high temperature started, but as soon as I woke up the next day, I understood what Wine meant when he said that human nature couldn't stand the test. 11. In the property management group, a resident from the neighboring unit on the same floor at me. It's already so hot that I can't fall asleep. And your air conditioner's outdoor unit has been making noise all night. Don't you have any sense of public morality? As soon as this message came out, instead of criticizing me for lacking public morality, others asked why there was electricity in my house. Wynn told me not to say anything. People in the group kept asking questions, and I kept pretending to be silent according to his advice. But at noon, when we finished lunch and were about to rest, the air conditioner at home suddenly stopped. I thought it was a problem with the generator, but all other electrical appliances were working normally. Wynn stuck his head out of the window and took a look, sweating profusely. It should be that the outdoor unit was damaged by the neighbor next door. After a while, a ray of light suddenly refracted from the window of my house, which was very dazzling. Wynn walked to the window again and took a look, frowning. I asked him what was going on, and he had a serious expression. The people next door are taking pictures. They should have taken a photo of the generator. This is a bit troublesome. Just as he finished speaking, a message came in the group. The person from the neighboring unit sent a photo of the generator in my house. There's actually a generator in room 1602. Then everyone in the whole unit started at me like crazy. I'll pay 50,000 yuan to buy it from you. We're all neighbors. We should share it. Yes, yes, yes. There are a total of 40 households in this building. Each household can use it for 40 minutes, which is exactly 24 hours. I was speechless and even a little angry. These people really took shamelessness to the extreme. I continued to pretend to be silent. When I went to bed at night, I brought out the cold fan I bought and put a bottle of frozen mineral water in the water tank. The two of us slept on the floor in the living room so that we could both enjoy the coolness. But not long after I fell asleep, Wind and I were woken up by the sound of someone banging on the door. 12. A rough male voice came from outside the door. People in room 1602, quickly hand over the generator and let everyone use it together, otherwise, we won't be polite. I was extremely scared. Wind calmly handed me a baseball bat and protected me behind him. He shouted sternly at the door, "Get out." At this moment, I thought he was extremely mighty and tall, and I felt a great sense of security. The people outside the door were still shouting. Fortunately, my door was strong enough. After they kicked the door for half an hour, they finally stopped and left. After this commotion, Wind and I lost our sleepiness. We just lay on our respective places and chatted. We didn't even know when we fell asleep. In a daze, there was a bang, and Wind and I were awakened. We looked at the smoking cold fan with a sense of despair, due to dry burning for too long. The main unit of the cold fan was burned out. The temperature in the room started to rise again. By noon, the temperature in the room had soared to 45 degrees. I picked up my phone and looked at the weather forecast. The outdoor temperature had already reached 70 degrees. The trees and grass in the community had all dried up and died, and the asphalt on the road had started to melt. What scared me the most was that 8 people in our community had died. These 8 people had slept in the car with the air conditioner on all night and died from carbon monoxide poisoning. As soon as the news came out, no one dared to go to the underground garage anymore. Wind and I relied on more than a dozen handheld small fans to cool down, but on the third day, only 2 small fans could still be used. The others had completely broken down due to working for a long time. At first, everyone received delivered water and food every 2 days, however. When there was no supply of materials for 4 consecutive days, people started to go crazy, and incidents of smashing, looting, and robbing occurred one after another. A single mother, in order to find milk powder for her child, resolutely chose to go out in the 70-degree high temperature when she happily walked downstairs with the milk powder she found in the baby products store. She fainted from heatstroke. The child didn't wait for the milk powder, and the mother didn't see the child. The 2 of them passed away one after another. A girl recorded a video while crying. She said that she had killed her dog with a knife, drained all the blood from the dog's body, and replenished water by relying on the dog's blood. After running out of food, she ate its meat with tears in her eyes. When I saw these 2 pieces of information, I cried my eyes out. Wynne said, "Josephine, this is the end of the world. We have no choice but to do our best and leave the rest to fate." 13. Slowly, we had used up all the vegetables, and now only meat was left to eat. When cooking meat at night, the whole room was filled with a delicious aroma. I was afraid that people with ulterior motives would rush over again after smelling the smell. Fortunately, that didn't happen, but after having pure meat for 3 meals a day, I couldn't eat it anymore on the 3rd day. Every time I finished eating, I would vomit until my stomach acid came up. My condition was getting worse and worse. Wind started to cook the meat in different ways, but whether it was stir-fried or braised, I couldn't eat it at all. Every day, I could only sustain myself by eating chocolate or other snacks. On the 15th day of the continuous high temperature, I completely broke down. The last two small fans broke down, and the generator also broke down. I fainted from heat stroke again. I didn't know how long I had been unconscious. There was always a voice calling my name in my ear. I tried hard to open my eyes. I found myself lying in the bathtub, with a frozen mineral water bottle that was almost melted floating in the bathtub and Wind sitting there in a daze. I moistened my throat, and my voice was a bit hoarse. Wind, hearing my voice, he stiffly reached out his hand and touched my forehead. "Josephine, you finally woke up. Now there's a good news and a bad news. Which one do you want to hear first?" I forced a malformed smile. "The good news," he smiled, his eyes all red. "You're still alive." This was really a good news. I continued to ask, "What about the bad news?" He said, "There's no signal on the phone anymore." I fell silent. Without a signal, it meant that we couldn't receive any news from the outside world, and we could only fend for ourselves. After taking a moment to recover, I got out of the bathtub and changed into a dry set of clothes. Wind asked me to drink a bottle of Wuxingxing, and we sat in the living room staring at each other in a daze. Half an hour later, we took stock of our supplies. We still had a lot of water, including 10 cases of mineral water, 5 buckets of drinking water for the water dispenser, and even 3 unopened cases of beverages. There were also 3 chickens, half a lamb leg, and 10 jean of pork in the freezer. To my pleasant surprise, there were actually 5 extra cases of instant noodles. Wind explained that his neighbor across the door had just gone on a vacation abroad before the high temperature hit. The neighbor privately messaged him saying that there were 5 cases of instant noodles at home that he could have. This was because Wind had helped the neighbor's child with tutoring before. Thanks to the remaining cold air in the freezer, the food could still be preserved for the time being. Calculating it this way, our food could last for a while. I suddenly remembered that I had some cooling patches for my phone that I bought online and hadn't opened yet. When I moved them out from the utility room, I finally felt much more at ease. So, now the scene was that both Wind and I had colorful cooling patches on our foreheads, necks, and wrists. I started reading a book to calm my mind, while he kept tinkering around, trying to repair the generator and the small fans. After having dinner in the evening, we looked at each other and spoke simultaneously. "Your face is so red." Yes, due to the long-term high temperature and lack of vitamins, our immune systems had weakened, and we had a fever. We didn't dare to use too many cooling patches because we had already used up half of them in just half a day. In the end, we decided to cool down using the bathtub. We poured the water that we had stored in the buckets provided by the property management earlier into the bathtub, and then added 10 bottles of ice-cold mineral water. He and I got into the bathtub at the same time, and our body temperatures gradually started to drop. I looked at his white t-shirt clinging tightly to his body, outlining the contours of his abdominal muscles. "Wind, have you ever been in a relationship?" His face turned red. "No," I smiled. "What a coincidence. Neither have I. So, are you interested in having an apocalyptic romance with me?" He nodded. "If we can survive, I want to take you to meet my parents." I slowly moved closer to him and whispered in his ear, "If we survive, I want to go directly to the Civil Affairs Bureau with my household register." Then I did the boldest thing in my life. I kissed him. I didn't know if the water in the bathtub was getting warmer or if our bodies were heating up, but Wind's face became redder and redder, and even the tips of his ears turned pink. We had fewer and fewer clothes on, and the room was filled with an intimate atmosphere. All I knew was that since we were going to die sooner or later, we might as well enjoy the present moment happily. 15. The next day, when I woke up, I found myself lying in Wind's arms, and my body temperature had returned to normal. Not caring about being shy, I heard the sound of thunder. I quickly got up and went to the window. When I opened the window, it was actually drizzling. The whole community was in an uproar. I didn't know when Wind had stood behind me and hugged me in his arms. "Josephine, it seems we have a chance to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." My face turned so red that it was burning, and this time it wasn't because of the fever. Suddenly, my phone rang. I broke free from his arms, grabbed the phone, and saw that it was a call from my mom. I quickly answered it. "Josephine, how are you?" Hearing my mom's voice, tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I asked nervously, "Mom, I'm okay. Are you and Dad okay?" My mom's voice was a bit choked up. "Your dad and I are fine. It's been quite cool in the basement, and we have enough food. We were just worried because we couldn't get in touch with you." After comforting my parents, I saw that the network had been restored, and I quickly opened the news. According to the research of the National Meteorological Administration, this rainfall will last for 2 days, and the catastrophic high temperature is about to end. All parts of the country have already started emergency repairs, and the water and electricity supply will soon be restored. It is expected that all production and daily life will return to normal in 5 days. Experts have appealed to pay attention to environmental protection, reduce the burning of fossil fuels, and control carbon dioxide emissions. I didn't listen to the rest of the words because Wind had already started urging me to find my household register. Josephine, hurry up, don't go back on your word. I looked at him helplessly. Wind, didn't you hear what the news just said? Production and daily life won't return to normal until 5 days later. It's no use finding it now. He looked embarrassed. I'm just afraid that you'll change your mind. I nestled into his arms. Although we can't get the marriage certificate now, do you think I can meet your parents as your ugly daughter-in-law today? That afternoon, Wind drove his big pickup truck and took me to his home in high spirits. Everyone we saw on the way had a look of joy on their faces, the joy of having survived the disaster. Because we were alive, there was joy. 16. In the next 2 days, we met each other's parents, and our parents also met each other. We just had to wait for 3 days to get the marriage certificate and hold the wedding a month later. We joined the volunteer team for post-disaster reconstruction. I was in charge of registering the equipment that needed repair in the community, while Wind was responsible for helping the property management distribute supplies to everyone. To my pleasant surprise, Felix told me that the big brother I saved at that time was about to be discharged from the hospital. The property management company not only reported me for the award of Good Citizen for doing what's right and being brave, but also waived my property management fees for the next 5 years. After hearing this, Wind smiled and said, "It seems that I have to take good care of my wife in the future. After all, I don't dare to offend a good citizen who does what's right and is brave." After staying up all night to finish the project plan, I had just lain down for less than 10 minutes when a loud bang scared me so much that I sat up straight away. A month later, our wedding was held as scheduled. When the MC asked us, regardless of poverty or wealth, illness or health, when the other person needs you the most, are you willing to stay by their side and never leave them for the rest of your life? Wind and I opened our mouths simultaneously with red eyes. I am willing to live and die with him, her, until the end of my life. In the sweltering summer, I have wind, and everything is just right. In the face of natural disasters and the end of the world, human strength is very insignificant, but I have always believed that as long as we stand together and support each other, the potential of humanity will be infinitely explored. Now that the apocalypse has passed and the sadness has faded away, all we need to do is embrace the new life. Story 2. On the 19th day after the outbreak of the apocalypse, my husband sold me to the fat otaku upstairs in exchange for 2 jean of rice and 3 jean of water. I endured humiliation and finally, unable to bear the shame, I committed suicide by jumping off a building. As I fell, I saw my husband holding my best friend. Only at that moment did I discover their secret. It turned out that everything had been premeditated. Unfortunately, I was lucky enough to be reborn. This time, I will make them, and all those who have hurt me, pay a bloody price. 1. Swoosh. The white curtains were pulled open by a thick, large hand. The first rays of sunlight in the morning shone in, stinging my eyes. I groggily opened my eyes and looked at everything familiar in front of me, feeling extremely incredulous. I was actually reborn. I was reborn the day before the outbreak of the apocalypse. Before I could even begin to think about all this, the large hand that had pulled open the curtains touched my forehead. "Baby, the sun is already high in the sky. You can't sleep in any longer. Hurry up and get up. Today is the day we go to register our marriage." This large hand had given me 3 years of warmth and love. Whenever I was sad or lacked confidence, it would always appear in time, hugging me and caressing me. Especially a month ago, when my parents died in a car accident, this large hand had given me the greatest support. It made me feel safe and secure. But that was only true before. Now, looking at this large hand, my heart was filled with fear, disgust, and anger. "Don't touch me." I instinctively pushed away this large hand and let out a hysterical cry. Raleigh's hand froze in midair, and a trace of barely noticeable disgust and viciousness flashed in his eyes. However, his tone was extremely gentle, as affectionate as ever. "Baby, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I suddenly have a really bad stomachache. "I'm afraid I can't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau today. Let's go tomorrow." I pretended to have a very painful stomach and tried my best to disguise myself so that Raleigh wouldn't notice anything strange. "But, Raleigh, I'm really not feeling well. You go out first and let me rest. Let's talk about getting the marriage certificate tomorrow." I didn't give Raleigh a chance to speak again and drove him out. Then, I locked the door from the inside and slumped to the ground, feeling completely drained. Raleigh, my husband in my previous life. the man I had always trusted the most and my only reliance. On the 19th day after the outbreak of the apocalypse in my previous life, he sold me to the fat otaku upstairs for 2 jean of rice and 3 jean of water. I would never have dreamed that this man who loved me deeply and whom I loved with all my heart would treat me like this, and all of this was just the tip of the iceberg of his evil true nature, too. In my previous life, after Raleigh sold me to the fat otaku upstairs, I endured humiliation. That man with pockmarked and greasy skin was simply a lunatic. Finally, unable to bear the humiliation, I committed suicide by jumping off a building on the morning of the 20th day after the outbreak of the apocalypse. However, when I fell, I saw Raleigh holding my best friend, Amelia, in his arms. Their intimate posture was just like what Raleigh and I used to have, miserably. When I jumped from the 3rd floor, I didn't die immediately. Before the zombies pounced on me and bit me to death, I heard the conversation between Raleigh and Amelia on the 2nd floor. "Raleigh, you're really ruthless. You actually sold Zara to that dead otaku upstairs for 2 jean of rice and 3 jean of water. I heard screams all night long yesterday. TSK, don't you feel the slightest bit of pity? After all, Zara is your wife whom you've loved for 3 years. Pity my ass. I've never loved her. I married her just to get her parents' wealth. I'm sorry to have made you endure it with me for 3 years. You know that. TSK, that bitch actually occupied you for 3 years. Just thinking about it makes me angry. But the moment I ran over her parents with my car, it was really satisfying. Don't mention that disgusting family of 3, now that we're full and have enough to drink. Let's have some dessert after the meal. We still have to set off to." Remembering the scenes from my previous life, my head throbbed with pain, and I almost collapsed. I never would have thought that Raleigh had been plotting with me for a long time, and even my best friend, Amelia, who grew up with me, was involved in this matter. The seeds of hatred began to spread in my heart. Raleigh and Amelia, you probably never dreamed that I would be reborn, right? Reborn. I will make you pay a bloody price for everything you've done, and that dead fat guy upstairs too. 3. I locked myself in the room for a long time before my emotions gradually eased from the nightmare of my previous life. I got up from the ground, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. Slowly, I turned the doorknob. Since God had given me a chance to be reborn, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Creak, the door opened, and a handsome face came into view. Raleigh was holding a cup of sugar water in his hand, looking very eager. He leaned in with a doting expression on his face. "Zara, I made you some sugar water. Drink it quickly, and your tummy will feel much better. I want to go to Nanshan Cemetery to visit my parents." I didn't take the sugar water Raleigh was offering. Instead, I put on a sad and weak appearance and walked towards the door. I didn't take the sugar water because I was afraid that Raleigh had put drugs in it. Having seen this man's ugly true nature, I knew he was capable of anything, so I had to stay vigilant at all times. Putting on a sad and weak appearance was to make Raleigh think that my sudden change in mood was because I still hadn't gotten over the grief of my parents' death. Sure enough, Raleigh just thought I was too grief-stricken and didn't suspect anything. He put the sugar water on the table and trotted after me. "Let me go with you. You're too weak. What if something happens on the way? No need. I want to go alone." I refused Raleigh's kindness. I definitely couldn't let him follow me, or else how could I prepare for my next plan? There was only 1 day left before the apocalypse. Not only did I want to get my revenge, but I also needed to prepare sufficient survival supplies to ensure my survival. I was lucky enough to be reborn, and I didn't want to be bitten to death by zombies again. I didn't want to experience that kind of excruciating pain like being skinned and having my muscles torn apart, accompanied by a strong stench. "I'd still like to go with you. I'm worried about you." This man was still so shamelessly following me. If it were in my previous life, I would have naively thought that he was concerned about me. However, now I knew that he was just afraid that I would run away. Just as I was thinking about how to get rid of Raleigh, a beautiful woman wearing a 3-centimeter mini skirt, black stockings, and heavy makeup appeared at the door. "Amelia, my best and only friend. Yo, are you in such a hurry to go and get the marriage certificate so early? Zara, you're so lucky to have met such a good man like Raleigh. As your best friend, I'm really happy for you." Amelia came up and gave me a big hug. Her tone of blessing was extremely sincere, but if you looked closely, you could see the hatred and jealousy in her eyes. "What marriage certificate? Zara is in a bad mood today, so we've changed it to tomorrow." Raleigh pretended to be concerned about me and secretly gave Amelia a look, signaling her to persuade me to get the marriage certificate today. Amelia understood and came up to persuade me earnestly, saying that today was an auspicious day and it would be unlucky to miss it. These 2 scoundrels were really crazy about getting my parents' inheritance and couldn't wait for even a single day. I was so stupid in my previous life. These two scoundrels were flirting right in front of me, and I didn't notice a thing. I said, I'm not feeling well today, don't follow me, just leave me alone, I roared and, ignoring the two of them, quickly went downstairs. Sure enough, Raleigh and Amelia didn't follow me. I walked downstairs under their gaze, but then quietly turned back and hid around the corner of the corridor. I saw an intimate and sinister scene. I don't know what that stupid woman is up to today. How dare she lose her temper with me? I will definitely kill her. Don't worry, just endure it for a few more days. Once I get that bitch's parents' inheritance, I'll chain her up and you can do whatever you want to her. Baby, I've missed you so much these past few days. Raleigh, me too. Raleigh picked up Amelia and turned to enter the room, looking impatient. These two scoundrels. I'll let you be complacent for one more day. Tomorrow will be your doom, for, in just a dozen seconds, the ear-piercing sound of them having sex came from the room. I felt so disgusted that I wanted to vomit. The anger in my heart burned like a raging fire, and I couldn't wait to kick the door open and chop these two scoundrels into pieces with a knife, but I knew it wasn't the right time. I was just a weak woman and couldn't possibly be a match for these two scoundrels. If I wasn't careful, I might even be killed instead. So I had to endure it, and right now, the most important thing wasn't getting revenge, but ensuring my survival. I took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the surging hatred in my chest. Then I went downstairs and quickly walked towards the outside of the community. There was only one day left before the apocalypse. After the apocalypse arrived, the zombie virus spread throughout each city at an alarming speed. 30% of the people were infected with the zombie virus and turned into zombies. These zombies were infected by some unknown virus. They were like mindless mad dogs, biting anyone they saw. Those who were bitten would turn into zombies in just a short minute. In just 10 hours, 90% of the people were infected, and the entire H city fell completely, turning into a living hell. Therefore, after the apocalypse arrived, it was absolutely impossible to go out. The survival rate of going out was almost zero, so I needed to find a reliable shelter first. Besides a reliable shelter, I also needed to store a large amount of survival supplies because I didn't know how long the apocalypse would last, or if it would ever end at all. Anyway, on the 20th day after the outbreak of the apocalypse in my previous life, when I committed suicide, the apocalypse was still ongoing, so I needed to store as many survival supplies as possible. As for the shelter, among my parents' inheritance, there was a 3-story villa located in the southwest suburbs of H City. It wasn't as bustling as the city center, there were fewer people, and it was very quiet, making it a good choice for taking refuge during the apocalypse. As for the survival supplies, my parents had prepared a large supermarket in the city center before they passed away. All kinds of goods had already been put on the shelves. Unfortunately, they had a car accident on the day before the supermarket was supposed to open, so the supermarket still hadn't opened until now. My family was quite well off, which was also why Raleigh was so scheming and vicious in his attempt to get my parents' property, so I didn't need to buy a large quantity of survival supplies. I could just directly transport the supplies from the supermarket to the villa. Because of running the supermarket, my father had also bought a large truck, and I could just use this truck to transport the goods, but there was only one day left before the apocalypse. Loading and unloading the goods would take time, and I was just a weak woman. It was almost impossible for me to transport a large amount of supplies to the villa in just one day. If I hired movers, it would expose the location of the villa and let others know that I had stored a large amount of survival supplies, which was very risky, because after the outbreak of the apocalypse, humanity was lost. I had witnessed a man brutally killing his girlfriend just for a bite of food, so I couldn't hire movers. What should I do? Hi, beauty, I've downloaded a pure-blooded action love movie. Do you want to come to my place and enjoy it together? My bed is big and soft. Just as I was racking my brains trying to come up with a solution, a lewd voice rang in my ears. When I heard this voice, my body couldn't help but tremble. I was all too familiar with this voice. It was like a devil to me. 5. I looked up and saw the fat otaku from upstairs. His face was full of pockmarks and greasy fat. When he smiled, he showed a mouthful of yellow teeth. He was as disgusting as he could be. Remembering the scenes of being humiliated by this fat otaku in my previous life, my heart was filled with infinite fear and hatred. Beauty, let's have some fun together. I'll give you 3,000 yuan. Don't rush to refuse. 3,000 yuan is a month's salary for an ordinary person. You can earn it just by lying still. It's a great deal. While I was in a daze, the fat otaku came up closer. There was a wicked look in his eyes. Smelling his body odor, I almost vomited. I instinctively wanted to slap him, but I held back. At the same time, I suppressed the fear in my heart and smiled coquettishly. Sure, but you have to do me a favor. At this moment, a plan for revenge formed in my mind. 6. As long as you're willing to lie on my bed and watch the love movie with me, not only will I do you one favor, but I'll do 10 favors for you." The wicked look in the fat otaku's eyes became even hotter. He came even closer to me, and his ugly, fat face was almost rubbing against my nose. His two big, chubby hands, like pig's trotters, were very unruly and were about to touch me. I suppressed the nausea in my heart and dodged the fat otaku's advances. I put some distance between us and smiled gently. "Don't be in such a hurry, help me with the work first. After we're done, we'll go to your place and watch the love movie. Beauty, tell me what you want me to do." The fat otaku rolled up his sleeves, stuck out his tongue, and looked like a lustful husky, being extremely attentive. My family was going to prepare a supermarket in the city center, but my parents passed away a month ago, so the matter of the supermarket was put on hold. I'm not in the mood to open the supermarket now, and I'm going to sell it. As for some of the goods inside, I want to move them to the villa my parents left me and donate them to those in need later, but I'm just a weak woman and can't do the physical work of moving. Can you help me with the moving? I pretended to be weak and pitiful and made up a random excuse to deceive him. Sure enough, the fat otaku fell for it and agreed to help me move the goods without hesitation, so I drove the car and took the fat otaku to the supermarket in the city center. This car was bought for me by Raleigh and was registered in my name. Before the apocalypse broke out in my previous life, I really thought he was so considerate. No, I just felt disgusted. Every time I saw this car, I felt disgusted. Then why was I still driving this car? This had something to do with my revenge plan, which I will explain later. On the way to the supermarket, the fat otaku tried to touch me several times, but I managed to dodge him with various excuses. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and got angry, saying that if he didn't behave himself, he could get out of the car and our deal would be off. The fat otaku finally behaved himself and stopped trying to touch me. However, from the rearview mirror, I saw a trace of sinister look flash in his eyes, just like the look in his eyes when he was on top of me in my previous life. I became even more determined to kill him. Half an hour later, the fat otaku and I arrived at the supermarket in the city center. I made a list of goods: 50 bags of flour, 50 bags of rice, a total of 1,000 jin of various raw meats, including pork and mutton, 1,000 jin of various vegetables, with 90% of them being vegetables that can be stored for a long time, such as pumpkins, onions, white radishes, etc., 1,000 jin of various fruits, also mainly fruits that can be stored for a long time. There were 4 large refrigerators in the villa, but they were far from enough to store all these meats, vegetables, and fruits, so I was going to transport 5 more large refrigerators to the villa. After the apocalypse arrived, the water resources were severely polluted, so water was of utmost importance. There were 500 large barrels of bottled water in the supermarket, and I was going to take them all away. There were also various daily necessities such as pots, pans, bowls, clothes, and toilet paper. I was going to load a whole truck of them, which would be enough for me to use for several years. 100 power banks, all fully charged. There were also 2 generators in the supermarket, and I was going to take them away too. On the 3rd day after the outbreak of the apocalypse, each city had a power outage. As a person who was addicted to using my phone, I really couldn't live without electricity. As for all kinds of snacks, like spicy strips, potato chips, chocolate, these recreational snacks were at the bottom of my list. If I had time, I would transport as many as possible. If not, it didn't matter. While the fat otaku was loading the goods onto the truck, I took the time to go to several nearby pharmacies and bought a lot of medicine, such as amoxicillin, cold granules, just in case, in the apocalypse, there would be no doctors to treat me once I got sick. If I didn't have medicine, I would basically be doomed, in addition to buying medicine. I also purchased a batch of iron wires, steel plates, and a large amount of electric fences online, planning to upgrade the defensive capabilities of the villa. In the apocalypse, we not only had to guard against zombies but also against people. The villa might be able to withstand the attacks of zombies, but it might not be able to stop people. By the time I had finished all my purchases, the fat otaku had filled the first truckload of goods. I drove with him to the villa. On the way, I received a call from Raleigh. On the phone, Raleigh questioned me, "Why aren't you at Nanshan Cemetery? Where are you? Where have you gone?" There was a hint of coldness and anxiety in his questioning tone. In my previous life, I was such a naive and sweet girl. Every time Raleigh spoke to me like this, I foolishly thought he was worried about my safety and would even be moved by myself for 10 minutes, but now I knew that Raleigh was afraid I would run away and that all his efforts of the past 3 years would be in vain. This dogman was really cautious. I had only been out for a few hours, and he had already gone to Nanshan Cemetery to look for me. Fortunately, I had also taken precautions. I've come to my hometown in the countryside. I want to recall the memories of my childhood with my parents here. Don't worry about me. I'll come back by myself tomorrow. I lied without batting an eyelid and at the same time sent Raleigh a pre-prepared video of my hometown in the countryside. Having experienced an apocalypse and seen so many cruel scenes and the ugliness of human nature, my mentality had become extremely strong. I was no longer the silly girl I used to be. I wasn't afraid that he would go to the countryside to look for me either. There was a certain distance between each city and my hometown in the countryside. It would take 3 hours to drive there by private car, Raleigh, and I only had one private car, and his white moonlight, Amelia, didn't have a car. If he wanted to go to the countryside to find me, he would either take a bus or rent a private car. Taking a bus required buying a ticket and changing buses. It would take at least 5 or 6 hours to get there. Renting a private car also took time. In the end, it would take about the same time as taking a bus. Plus, it would take time to find me. Without 7 or 8 hours, Raleigh wouldn't be able to find out that I was lying to him. Returning to each city, even if driving a private car, it would take 3 hours. Plus, the time to find me, he would definitely be busy until tomorrow. And at 5:29 tomorrow morning, the apocalypse would break out. The disaster would sweep through the entire urban area of H City with lightning speed, so I actually hoped that Raleigh would go to my hometown in the countryside to look for me. In this way, when the apocalypse broke out tomorrow, he would definitely be outside looking for me and would basically be doomed. However, this dogman didn't go to my hometown in the countryside to look for me. After watching the video I sent him, he let down his guard and continued to have sex with his white moonlight, Amelia. It didn't matter. I hadn't expected this little trick to kill Raleigh either. I had other plans. 9. After half an hour of bumpy driving, the fat otaku and I arrived at the villa located in the southwest suburbs. It took another hour to unload the truckload of goods. And then we immediately drove back to the supermarket in the city center to load more goods. We made 4 round trips like this before finally transporting all the things on my list to the villa. I had been born into a well-off family and had never done such heavy physical work before, especially for nearly 11 consecutive hours. I was almost exhausted, feeling weak all over and slumped on the sofa in the first-floor living room, not wanting to move at all. The fat otaku was even more tired than me because he had carried 80% of the goods. This dog thing sat on the ground without any regard for his image, panting like a hound dog, with saliva dripping all over the place. It was so disgusting that I almost vomited. It was this dirty thing that had insulted me in my previous life. I turned my eyes away and stopped looking at the fat otaku because I was afraid that I couldn't help but feel nauseous and vomit. And even more afraid that I couldn't help but rush up and fight him. Right now, I was no match for him. And I still needed to be patient. After resting for about 10 minutes, the fat otaku got up from the ground, rubbing his hands. His eyes were burning with desire, and he pounced on me wickedly. "Beauty, the work is done. It's time for you to fulfill your promise." I quickly dodged the fat otaku's pounce and pointed to the piles of wire mesh, steel plates, and other items on the ground. "The work isn't done yet. We can do the exercise first and then finish the work later." At this moment, the fat otaku was clearly driven by lust and rushed up to hug me, trying to force himself on me. The nightmares of my previous life reappeared in my mind. I was so scared that my body couldn't help but tremble. I used all my strength to push the fat otaku away and pretended to be calm. "No way, I'm a clean freak. I'm covered in sweat right now, and this villa hasn't been lived in for a long time. It's very dirty. I definitely won't do that with you here. If you touch me again, I'll call the police." Since the apocalypse hadn't arrived yet, the fat otaku at this time didn't have the guts to really force himself on me. Hearing what I said, although he was very unhappy, he could only endure it. "Fine, then let's finish the work first. After that, we can have some fun." Then, the fat otaku started to help me install wire mesh, steel plates, electric fences, and other strengthening items on the villa. It took nearly 5 hours to finally finish. During this period, the fat otaku expressed his dissatisfaction several times and wanted to stop working and have sex with me, but I managed to persuade him with sweet words and threats. Looking at the entire villa, with all its gaps wrapped in thick steel plates and covered with wire mesh and electric fences outside, I was very satisfied. With this level of defense, it could at least withstand the simultaneous siege of dozens of zombies and also resist people with malicious intentions. "Let's go to my place, to my bed, and watch the movie." The fat otaku hugged me tightly, and the wickedness in his eyes could no longer be concealed. 10. I broke free from the fat otaku's embrace, endured the nausea, and smiled coquettishly. "Don't be in such a hurry. Go and check if there's any problem with the electric fence first. If there's no problem, we'll go. Don't worry, I'll serve you comfortably." What a hassle. The fat otaku complained unhappily and then went to check the electric fence. and I was waiting for this moment. I quietly walked to the switch box. When the fat otaku climbed onto the balcony on the third floor to check the electric fence, I pulled down the switch. Ziz. The sound of the fat otaku's screams mixed with the sound of electricity burning flesh. The fat otaku twitched and fell from the third floor, dying on the spot. His head was smashed open, and white brains flowed all over the ground. Looking at the dead fat otaku, having experienced an apocalypse, I wasn't the least bit afraid. Instead, I felt extremely happy. This dog thing that had cruelly tortured me finally got what he deserved. Next was Raleigh and Amelia. After dealing with the fat otaku's body, I took out my phone and looked at the time, 3:29 in the morning. Just right, there were still 2 hours until the apocalypse arrived. Although I had been busy for nearly 20 hours in a row, I wasn't sleepy at all. I locked all the doors of the villa and added several large locks from the inside. After confirming that there were no safety hazards, I went to the kitchen and made myself a plate of braised chicken pieces, opened a pack of peanuts, grabbed a few cans of beer, and climbed to the rooftop. While eating the braised chicken pieces, cracking peanuts, and drinking beer, I waited for the arrival of the apocalypse. During this period, Raleigh didn't call me again. He was probably still having sex with Amelia. I had to say, these two people really deserved each other. Raleigh, Amelia, cherish your last happy moments. When I drank the last sip of the last can of beer, the time on my phone reached 5:29 in the morning. The apocalypse had arrived. 11. The terrain of H City was high in the west and low in the east. The villa left to me by my parents was located on the halfway up a mountain in the southwest suburbs of H City, which happened to overlook the entire H City. At 5:29 in the morning, I stood on the rooftop of the villa, holding a high-precision telescope and looking towards a dozens-story building in the east of the city. There was a huge explosion there, and then half of the dozens-story building collapsed, and a huge fire blazed into the sky. This scene, in my previous life, I saw it on the news live on Douyin half an hour after the outbreak of the apocalypse. Now, seeing it with my own eyes, the visual effect was more real and shocking than on TV. Even though I had already experienced an apocalypse, seeing such a scene still made my heart throb. A dozen minutes later, on Douyin, the official news certification video account of H City started a live broadcast. The scene in the live broadcast was exactly the same as in my previous life. A beautiful female reporter in her 20s, wearing a black professional suit, with a clean and neat appearance and temperament, held a microphone and stood in front of the collapsed building, explaining the details after the building collapsed. Through the live broadcast video, it could be seen that the rescue team had arrived. Hundreds of rescue team members were conducting a carpet-like search and rescue on the collapsed building. Dozens of injured people were rescued, but there were more dead. In just a short while, dozens of stretchers had been placed in front of the building, and there was a layer of white cloth covering each of them. Without a doubt, these were all dead people. Looking at this tragic scene, even though I had experienced the darkness of humanity once, my heart was still filled with pain. I felt sorry and mourned for these dead people. Maybe some people would say that since I was reborn and knew in advance about the outbreak of the apocalypse and all of this, why didn't I go and remind them? Maybe it could have avoided the deaths of these people and the arrival of the apocalypse. I had thought about this and struggled painfully in my heart, but in the end, I still chose to keep it a secret, because I was just an ordinary girl. Even if I told the truth, who would believe me? I would probably just be regarded as a fool. Moreover, I didn't know the real cause of the apocalypse. A plane crashing into a building couldn't possibly cause the apocalypse, right? There should be a deeper reason behind it. So, even if someone believed what I said and evacuated in advance, avoiding the deaths of these people, it still couldn't avoid the apocalypse, and the fact that I was reborn would also be exposed. At that time, I was afraid I would be treated as an experimental subject and sliced, so I chose not to say anything. Half an hour later, when the time reached 5:59 in the morning, in the news live broadcast video, the beautiful female reporter was still explaining. Suddenly, behind her, a dead person on a stretcher covered with a white cloth jumped up, knocked her down, and bit her neck. Then, more dead people got up from the stretchers and rushed towards the surrounding crowd. A series of shrill screams rang out. Then, the live broadcast went black, and the apocalypse had truly arrived. And I also opened the phone address book and dialed Raleigh's number. 12. Baby, why are you calling me so early? Are you back? After a long time, just when the phone was about to hang up, it was finally answered. There was a somewhat flustered voice on the phone and the rustling sound of getting dressed. I even heard a soft murmur, which was Amelia's voice. These two scoundrels were really still together. I took a deep breath and tried my best to suppress the anger in my heart. I said calmly, "Not yet, I'm on my way back. I should be able to reach the urban area at around 8 o'clock. The Civil Affairs Bureau opens at 8:30. Let's go there before it opens. But I left my household register at the supermarket yesterday. It's on the table at the front desk of the supermarket. I don't have time to go and get it. Can you go and get it for me? Sure. I'll go and get it right away. Perhaps because I had always been a naive and sweet girl in front of Raleigh. He didn't have any doubts about my words. He was very excited and even laughed out loud. This kind of happiness was hard to hide, and it came from the bottom of his heart. However, it wasn't because he was happy to register our marriage, but because his conspiracy was about to succeed and he was excited. Dog man, you can laugh. In a few hours, you'll have something to cry about. And Amelia, my best friend, after hanging up the phone, I raised the high-precision telescope and looked towards the building in the east of the city again. There was thick black smoke and a raging fire. Small black dots were constantly falling from the building, and there were dense black dots scurrying around everywhere around the building. Just like in my previous life, the zombie virus was spreading at an alarming speed. At this rate, in about 3 hours, it should spread to the city center. Right, by then, it would be the death of Raleigh and Amelia. 13. I stood on the rooftop, observing this familiar apocalypse with a high-precision telescope for a full half an hour, making sure that the spread speed of the apocalypse was exactly the same as in my previous life. Then I finally felt relieved. Immediately after, I locked the door of the rooftop, turned on the switch to power on the electric fence, and carefully checked the entire villa's protective facilities again. After confirming that there were no problems, I turned around and entered the bedroom. Opened the surveillance video on the laptop. The video clearly showed all the scenes within a 30-meter radius around the supermarket and the entire interior of the supermarket. The surveillance cameras in the supermarket were installed by my parents before they passed away to prevent people from stealing in the supermarket and to observe the surrounding environment of the supermarket. I didn't expect them to be of great use now. About another half an hour later, just when I was almost falling asleep, Raleigh finally appeared at the entrance of the supermarket, but I didn't see Amelia. It seemed that to avoid suspicion and prevent me from discovering their relationship, Amelia didn't come with Raleigh. This made me very disappointed. I could have caught these two scoundrels in one fell swoop. However, without Raleigh's protection, Amelia, who was completely unprepared, was facing this sudden apocalypse alone. She should die soon. Right? It just made me very unhappy that I couldn't kill her with my own hands, but there was nothing I could do about it. This kind of change was beyond my control. Anyway, as long as the final result was that she died, it could be considered as me getting my revenge. Raleigh had the spare key to the supermarket and easily opened the door and walked in. He rummaged through the table at the front desk for a long time but couldn't find the household register. Then he took out his phone to call me. Of course he couldn't find the household register. This was part of my long-planned conspiracy. Baby, where are you? Be careful on the way. There's no household register on the table. Did you remember the wrong place? Think again. I pressed the answer button. Raleigh's tone was gentle and full of concern, but through the surveillance video, I could clearly see a trace of viciousness on his face. Exactly the same as the look on his face when he sold me to the fat otaku in my previous life. I suppressed the excitement in my heart and tried to keep my tone calm. There isn't, then it might be in the warehouse. Go and check the warehouse. At this time, I couldn't show any signs of abnormality. Raleigh was very smart. If he noticed the slightest bit of something wrong, it might cause my revenge plan to fail. Okay, Raleigh walked step by step towards the warehouse, where his death awaited him, and my heart was pounding violently. At this moment, I was like a slave who had been oppressed for decades, raising a spear of resistance and stabbing it towards the slave owner. This kind of excitement, eagerness, and desire for liberation that ordinary people couldn't understand could only be understood by those who had truly experienced a tragic fate like mine. One step, and another step. Finally, Raleigh stepped into my trap. 14. The moment Raleigh entered the warehouse, I couldn't wait to press the remote control button. The next moment, in the surveillance video, a large iron chain net fell from the ceiling of the warehouse and landed on Raleigh. This large iron chain net weighed over 100 caddies and was secretly set up by me yesterday while the fat otaku was loading goods onto the truck. Click, click. In the surveillance video, screams were mixed with several bone-breaking sounds. The over 100 caddy iron chain net hit Raleigh, severely deforming and causing comminuted fractures in his hands, feet, and many parts of his body. Blood seeped through the torn skin, and in just a short while, a large area of the cement floor was soaked. He looked extremely miserable, but I felt no sympathy or pity. This was Raleigh's deserved end, and this was just the appetizer. Next, Raleigh's end would be even more tragic. Help me. With the over 100 caddy iron chain net on him and being severely injured, Raleigh couldn't break free at all. He was screaming and calling for help. I had painstakingly managed to trap and seriously injure him, and was about to avenge myself. How could I let him have a chance to escape? Creak, I pressed another remote control button, closing the warehouse door and completely cutting off the connection between the warehouse and the outside world. The warehouse door was very thick, and the sound couldn't penetrate it, even if Raleigh shouted his throat hoarse. No one would hear him and come to save him. Zara, why are you doing this to me? What on earth do you want? Let me go quickly. I'm your fiancé. Raleigh was really smart, even smarter than I thought. Just as the warehouse door closed, he associated it with me harming him and shouted out with certainty. His eyes were constantly scanning the warehouse, believing that I was secretly monitoring him. Fortunately, I was reborn and had seen Raleigh's true vicious face. So I was extremely careful in everything I did, leaving no trace. If I had been the slightest bit careless, I might have already become Raleigh's victim by now. 15. Why am I doing this to you? Don't you have a clue in your heart? Since I had been discovered by Raleigh, I no longer concealed it. I directly turned on the remote dialogue video and, no longer able to control my emotions, shouted hysterically through the video, Raleigh, you're so scheming. You and Amelia have been pretending for 3 years, killing my parents, trying to marry me and get my family's property. Do you really think I'm a fool and don't know anything? Yes, that's right, I was a fool. Raleigh and Amelia had been acting for 3 years, flirting with each other right under my nose, and I didn't notice anything. I was still head over heels in love with him, naively thinking that he truly loved me and that I was the only one in his heart. I was really a big joke. Fortunately, God gave me a chance to be reborn and avenge myself by exposing Raleigh's conspiracy. How do you know all this? Raleigh's face changed drastically, and a hint of panic appeared in his eyes. Then, realizing that he had said the wrong thing, he quickly changed his words and said, Zara, it's not what you think. Your parents' death has nothing to do with me. I love you so much. How could I kill them? And you've always known that I'm a rich second generation. My dad froze all my assets to let me experience and grow. That's why I'm so poor. After my 5-year experience is over, I can return to the family and inherit the family wealth. Becoming a billionaire, you'll have endless glory and wealth. It must be someone framing me. By the way, Raleigh had always claimed to be a rich second generation, saying that his father had frozen all his assets to let him experience life and become a better person, so he was so poor. After 5 years of experience, he could return to the family and inherit the family wealth, becoming a billionaire and giving me a life of luxury. Such a ridiculous lie. What was that in my previous life, I actually believed it without any doubt. Women in love really had no brains. 16. Really? I sneered and casually played a video. In the video, Raleigh and Amelia were leaning intimately against the door of the rental house, entangled with each other like water snakes, and saying vicious words about me. This was secretly recorded by me when I left the rental house. At this moment, Raleigh had no more excuses to refute. He burst into tears and begged me for mercy. Zara, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. As long as you forgive me, I'll do anything you want. I'll love you well and be a good husband. I'll never think about your parents' inheritance again. I was so angry that I laughed. At this time, this heartless dog still wanted to be my husband. How could he have the audacity to say such a thing? Shut up. After doing so many things worse than a beast, do you think you still deserve to be my husband? Husband, you're an insult to this word. You're not even worthy of being called a human. As I scolded Raleigh, I called up the surveillance around the supermarket. Outside, it had already started to get chaotic. The entire road was filled with all kinds of vehicles, and people were crowding and running around everywhere. Everyone's eyes were filled with endless fear. The zombie virus had already spread to the city center. Many people had rushed into the supermarket, looting the food and water. Some people even fought and killed each other over a pack of instant noodles or a bottle of water. There were also some hooligans who attacked weak women. The ugliness and cruelty of human nature were fully revealed at this moment. Even though I had experienced an apocalypse once and seen many similar scenes, seeing such a scene again, even just through the screen, still made my whole body go numb and shudder with fear. I felt pity for those weak people being bullied, but it was just pity. I could do nothing. I wasn't a savior and didn't have that ability. In the apocalypse, it was already very difficult for me to protect myself. Yes, I'm not worthy of being your husband. I'm not worthy of being a human. Zara, I beg you to forgive me. Although I deceived you, I didn't kill your parents. It was Amelia who drove and killed them on her own. It has nothing to do with me. These 3 years, I've really loved you with all my heart. I've picked you up from work on time every day, whether it's windy or rainy, whatever you want to eat or drink, no matter how late or how far I have to go. I'll buy it for you at the first time. I even bought you a car. Seeing that I was unmoved by his begging for mercy, Raleigh started to play the emotional card. I looked at Raleigh coldly through the screen and didn't respond to him at all. Such a beast. I felt disgusted even wasting one more word on him. He must die, and he must die a very miserable death to relieve the hatred in my heart. After a long time, not getting a response from me, Raleigh completely panicked and showed his true colors, threatening me viciously. Bitch. I don't believe you really dare to kill me. This is still a society ruled by law. If you kill me, you won't be able to live either. Let me go quickly, or else I'll definitely kill you when I get out. I sneered and ignored Raleigh's threat. It was already the apocalypse. What society ruled by law? Outside, countless people were dying. Who would care about the life and death of a Raleigh? I looked at the surveillance around the supermarket again. At this time, there were already hordes of zombies outside. They were everywhere, catching living humans. The food and water in the supermarket had also been looted completely. A few humans who didn't have time to escape were bitten to death by the zombies that rushed in and also turned into zombies. Wandering around in the supermarket, I knew the time had come. It was time to send Raleigh to hell. 17. My hands were shaking with excitement. I had been waiting for this moment for too long, since I was reborn. I had been waiting for this moment. Now, this moment had finally arrived. I pressed the remote control button, and the warehouse door slowly rose. Help me, someone is trying to kill me, save me. As soon as the warehouse door started to rise, Raleigh used all his strength to shout towards the outside. His voice immediately attracted more than a dozen zombies in the supermarket. These zombies let out hoarse roars, with disgusting mucus flowing from their mouths. They all pounced on the warehouse door and started to smash it crazily. What's that outside, Zara? What on earth are you trying to do? Raleigh was really smart and quickly noticed something was wrong. Don't you like watching zombie movies the most? Outside. That's exactly what you like the most. I coldly played the official news, letting Raleigh know about the arrival of the apocalypse and also showing him the tragic situation outside. I wanted him to be devoured by hordes of zombies in endless fear. Just like my way of death in my previous life. Close the door, please. Close the door quickly. Knowing the truth, Raleigh's eyes were filled with fear. He begged me frantically, banging his head on the ground, causing it to bleed and become a mess. I felt no pity in my heart. All of this was his due retribution. The warehouse door finally opened, and the zombies rushed in. The smell of blood on the ground made them extremely excited, and they all pounced on Raleigh like crazy. Through the iron net weighing over 100 caddies. The zombies couldn't bite off much of Raleigh's flesh with one bite, and this was exactly my revenge plan. I wouldn't let Raleigh die easily. I wanted him to be bitten to pieces by the zombies bit by bit, to endure the most extreme pain and die. The more than a dozen zombies gnawed on Raleigh for nearly half an hour. Finally, Raleigh stopped making a sound. At this time, Raleigh was a bloody mess, with white bones showing all over his body, and his face had been completely torn off. He could be said to be the most miserable person in the apocalypse, even more miserable than me in my previous life. This beast finally got what he deserved. I thought that after my feud with Raleigh was settled, I could comfortably slack off in the apocalypse, but I never expected that the real danger was quietly approaching me. 18. Not long after I killed Raleigh, the zombie virus quickly spread throughout H City. Just like in my previous life, in just 10 hours. 90% of the people in H City were infected and turned into zombies with festering skin and oozing pus and blood. Another 5% of the people were bitten to pieces by zombies and didn't even have the chance to turn into zombies. Although these people were tragic, I thought it was better than becoming a mindless, stinking walking corpse that only devoured flesh and blood. At least they died quickly. And the zombies had to endure the physical suffering of being eaten by countless maggots and flies for who knows how long. These zombies were originally living people, but now they were in a miserable state, unbearable to look at. Looking at the wandering zombies outside, I thought that if one day I was surrounded by zombies again, I wouldn't give them the chance to turn me into the same kind. I had prepared enough explosives. At that time, I would just blow myself to pieces. In the first few hours after the outbreak of the apocalypse, the official was still trying their best to block the relevant news, but the virus spread too fast. It only took a few hours to spread throughout the entire city. Countless zombies were wandering, running, and pouncing on survivors in the city. The news couldn't be blocked at all. So the officials simply released the news comprehensively and informed every survivor of the most effective way to kill zombies through various channels. At the same time, they warned survivors to stay at home and never go out. The officials said they would quickly solve this crisis. However, could it really be solved quickly? In my previous life, from the outbreak of the apocalypse to my death, the apocalypse lasted for 20 days, with no sign of ending or even alleviating at all, of course. I also hoped that in this life, because of my rebirth, it could bring some changes to the future and have some good effects, such as the early end of the apocalypse. However, my imagination was too beautiful. The apocalypse was still spreading rapidly as in my previous life, with no sign of stopping. On the third day after the outbreak of the apocalypse, the entire city had a power outage and the internet was cut off. After that, I never received a single official message again. On the fifth day at 8:29 in the morning, the water supply was cut off. Without food, survivors could still hold on for a few days, but without water, it was really hard to persevere. I stood on the top floor of the villa, holding a high-precision telescope and observing the situation outside through the glass window. Sure enough, in the afternoon of the fifth day, many survivors came out of their shelters, risking their lives to search for food and water everywhere. Without a doubt, 99% of the survivors were bitten to death by zombies. Only 1% of the survivors found a small amount of food and water and successfully returned to their shelters. Since the water supply was cut off, such things happened every day. More and more survivors ventured out to search for food and water, until 10 days later, fewer and fewer people went out because all the survivors who went out to search for food and water were bitten to death by zombies and turned into zombies. However, all of these had nothing to do with me. My villa had been transformed by me to be it could withstand the simultaneous siege of dozens of zombies and had a very high safety factor. I had stored enough food and water to last me several years. I ate all kinds of delicious food in the villa every day, completely out of place with the bloody world outside. I had once thought about saving some survivors or giving some food to survivors. But thinking about my tragic experience in my previous life, I strangled these thoughts in the cradle of my heart. In the apocalypse without order, the ugliness and greed of human nature were fully revealed. It was already difficult enough for me, a weak woman, to survive. If I rashly saved people and let them discover that I had a large amount of food and water, it might bring disaster to myself. However, even though I gave up such thoughts, I was still targeted by someone. 19. On the 29th day after the outbreak of the apocalypse in the morning, the sky was still covered by thick haze, with no sunlight. The dark and gloomy atmosphere was so oppressive that people could hardly breathe. I was having breakfast as usual, steaming 2 buns, frying an egg, and heating a cup of milk. I sat at the dining table, enjoying the delicious food while watching a movie downloaded before the apocalypse. Creak. At this moment, a strange noise came from the rooftop. My ears immediately perked up, and my heart was filled with panic. My first thought was that zombies had climbed onto the rooftop of my villa. I quickly put on a protective suit at the fastest speed. The protective suit was made by myself with iron sheets. Although it was very heavy, its protective performance was extremely high. Even if I was surrounded by zombies, I wouldn't be harmed for a while. After putting on the protective suit, I picked up an axe and quietly walked towards the rooftop. Through the glass window on the iron door of the rooftop, I saw the scene outside. It wasn't zombies, it was a drone. There was a note hanging on the drone, and there was a line of big words written on the note. I'm your neighbor next door. I know you have food and water. Share half of it with me, or I'll tell the others in the community that you have food and water. My heart sank suddenly. For more than 20 days, I had never gone out. The windows of my villa were installed with one-way glass, and people outside couldn't see inside. When I cooked, I used kitchen utensils like microwave ovens and ovens because using an induction cooker or gas would cause smoke and fragrance to spread out. I was so careful. How could someone find out that I had food and water? Soon, I realized that most likely the owner of the drone was bluffing me. I remained silent and didn't make any sound. After about 10 minutes, the drone flew away and flew to the rooftop of another villa, hitting the iron door on the rooftop of the villa. It was the same operation. It was really bluffing me. I carefully observed with a telescope. Next, the drone hit the iron doors on the rooftops of all the villas in the community. Only one family gave it food and water, although not much. It was enough for him to last for 2 days, and this family was not far from my villa, just next to mine. Finally, under my watch, the drone flew back to a villa. This villa was also not far from mine. Just behind my villa, I looked through the one-way glass and saw a fierce-looking bald man appear on the rooftop of the villa. He took the drone, food, and water into the villa. Before entering the villa, the bald man looked at the villa that gave him food and water with a vicious expression on his face. There was a greedy look in his narrow eyes. This bald man was probably having some evil thoughts. The people in the next-door villa were probably going to be in trouble. 20. Night soon fell. The scarlet moon penetrated the thick haze, casting an eerie red light over the entire land. The vicious look in the bald man's eyes lingered in my mind, making me unable to sleep for a long time. I always felt that something terrible was going to happen. Just in case, I turned up the current of the electric fence to the maximum, usually, to save electricity. I always kept the voltage of the electric fence at the lowest value. At the same time, I monitored the situation outside with a telescope. At 2 o'clock in the morning, just when I was about to fall asleep, the iron door on the rooftop of the villa behind me opened, and the bald man appeared on the rooftop terrace. He held a rope with an iron block tied to one end and threw it onto the iron fence on the rooftop of the next door villa. Then he tied the other end to the iron fence on the rooftop of his own villa. He tucked a kitchen knife into his waist and climbed along the rope to the rooftop of the next door villa. Then, I watched as he took out something that looked like a piece of wire and fiddled with the lock of the iron door. After a short while, the iron door was opened by him. Next, the bald man quietly sneaked into the next door villa. After that, not long later, I heard screams. About 10 minutes later, the bald man came back to the rooftop with a bag of food and water on his back. In his hands, he was dragging two corpses, one large and one small. They should be a mother and daughter. They were hacked to pieces and looked extremely miserable. I had met this mother and daughter. They were very kind and amiable. The little girl had even given me a lollipop once. They probably never dreamed that their kindness would bring about their own downfall. I was filled with anger in my heart. But there was nothing I could do. I could only watch helplessly as the bald man committed his evil deeds. It seemed that the bald man thought it wasn't satisfying enough to just kill the mother and daughter like this. He was extremely perverted and chopped the two of them into pieces and threw them downstairs. Suddenly, more than a dozen zombies were attracted and started to devour the flesh and blood of the mother and daughter. Even though I had experienced an apocalypse once, seeing such a scene made my whole body convulse with fear from the bottom of my heart. This bald man was too perverted. In the apocalypse, he had fully demonstrated the viciousness of human nature. After watching the mother and daughter being completely devoured by the zombies, the bald man was satisfied and climbed back to his own villa with the food and water on his back. I thought the bald man would stop for a few days, but I didn't expect that he would climb onto the rooftop of my villa the next night. 21. The next night, the bald man climbed onto the rooftop of my villa in the same way. I didn't expect that this bald man was so greedy. Even after getting enough food and water to last for half a month, he still wasn't satisfied and actually set his sights on me. But he had chosen the wrong person. I had already electrified the iron door of the rooftop in advance. When the bald man put his hand on the iron door, a powerful current immediately surged through his body. Along with a miserable scream, the bald man was directly burned into a charred corpse. After confirming that the bald man was dead, I turned off the power supply to the iron door, opened the iron door, and threw the bald man's body downstairs. Suddenly, more than a dozen zombies pounced on the bald man's body and devoured it. Just like the scene of the mother and daughter in the next-door villa being devoured by zombies the night before, I comforted myself in my heart that this was my way of avenging them. After the bald man died, the villa area where I lived returned to tranquility again. Occasionally, some people couldn't bear the hunger and thirst and risked going out to look for food and water. However, the food and water outside had already been snatched up, and there were wandering zombies everywhere. Without exception, all these people who went out never came back. Days passed like this. In the blink of an eye, more than 2 months passed. No one in the villa area went out to look for food and water anymore because almost all the survivors in the villa area who went out to look for food and water were bitten to death by zombies. There might still be a few survivors alive, but they no longer dared to go out. They hid in some dark corner, enduring hunger and thirst. Lingering on the verge of death, waiting for the arrival of death, the entire villa area became completely silent, just like a no-man's land. The wandering zombies also gradually dispersed because they couldn't find prey for a long time. Only 2 or 3 zombies were left wandering back and forth in the villa area, looking like wandering ghosts. I continued to live a life isolated from the world. I had 3 meals a day, with a balanced mix of meat and vegetables and a complete range of nutrients. In my free time, I would read books, watch movies, play games, or exercise on the treadmill. My life was very boring, but in the apocalypse full of zombies, being able to have such a leisurely and boring life, I already felt very satisfied. After all, I didn't know how many people outside were still on the run and couldn't even get a piece of expired bread. I thought this kind of life would continue until my food and water were completely used up. However, one day 3 months later, an armored vehicle drove into the villa area, and my leisurely life was completely disrupted, plunging me into an unprecedented crisis. 22. At 7 o'clock in the morning, it was just getting light, and I was still lying on the soft big bed, immersed in my dreams. Rumble. A dull sound came, making my ears ring a little and waking me up. I rubbed my still dazed eyes, opened the curtains, and looked outside through the one-way glass. I saw an armored vehicle rampaging through the villa area. The sound of the armored vehicle attracted all the wandering zombies in the villa area, more than 20 in total. However, facing the armored vehicle with strong defensive capabilities and equipped with a machine gun, these more than 20 zombies were no match at all. I saw a burly man dressed in camouflage clothes climb out from the top of the armored vehicle and the zombies with a machine gun. In just a few minutes, all the more than 20 zombies were eliminated. Then, I heard cheers from the villa area. It's the army. The people from the army are here to save us. We're saved. Everyone, come out quickly, with the cheers. 7 or 8 survivors came out from their respective villas and ran towards the armored vehicle. These people should be the last survivors in the entire villa area. I was also very excited. I had been hiding like a mouse for 3 months, thinking that I would have to keep hiding until I died. I didn't expect that I would really wait for hope, but I didn't run out immediately like the other survivors. My previous life experience made me more cautious. Moreover, I had enough food and water reserves to last me 3 to 5 years. So I didn't have the same eagerness as the other survivors in terms of mentality. I wanted to observe the situation first, make sure it was safe, and confirm that this armored vehicle was really here to save us before going out. Rat-a-tat-tat, just as the 7 or 8 survivors ran to the side of the armored vehicle, the burly man in camouflage clothes on the top of the armored vehicle suddenly opened fire and the survivors. The 7 or 8 survivors had no chance to escape and were shot to pieces before they even had time to react. Then, I heard the jeering laughter of the burly man. These idiots thought we were the army coming to save them. They all rushed out without thinking. This is good. It saves us a lot of trouble. Come on, second brother, stop dawdling. Hurry up and check these idiots' houses to see if there's any food and water. Another thin, sharp-nosed middle-aged man climbed out of the armored vehicle. He had triangular eyes and looked extremely fierce. Looking at these 2 men and the corpses of the survivors shot to pieces on the ground, I suddenly felt a chill down my spine. I secretly thanked myself for not running out immediately, otherwise, my end would probably be as miserable as the survivors on the ground. Soon, the 2 men, one fat and one thin, ransacked 7 or 8 villas, but they didn't find much. There were only a dozen bottles of water and enough food for one person to eat for half a month. Damn it, these idiots are really poor. There's only such a little supplies. What bad luck. The 2 men cursed and grumbled. 2 big brothers, don't worry. There's a house in this villa area that belongs to my former best friend. Before the apocalypse broke out, her parents were going to open a supermarket. Later, before the supermarket opened, I drove and killed her parents. I guess there will be a lot of food and water stored in the villa of her house. Just then, a woman's voice came from the armored vehicle. Then, a woman climbed out of the armored vehicle. When I saw this woman, I was so shocked that my eyes widened. Amelia. She actually didn't die, and she even found this place and set her sights on the supplies stored in my villa. 23. How did this woman survive? I was really shocked. Amelia looked even more delicate than me. Usually, she couldn't lift a thing or carry a load and would even complain of being tired after walking a few steps. The apocalypse broke out suddenly, and she had no preparation at all. Yet she was able to survive and even sat in an armored vehicle and traveled dozens of kilometers to the villa area where I lived. How on earth did she manage to do it? I was shocked and also very puzzled, but when I saw Amelia hugging and kissing the 2 men, her lips pressed against theirs, I understood. This woman had sold her body to seek protection. Sure enough, she was still as promiscuous as ever, really. When the 2 men heard Amelia's words, their eyes lit up, and their faces were filled with greed. Amelia nodded confidently. Of course it's true. I saw with my own eyes that her parents put those supplies in the basement before I drove and killed my stupid best friend's parents. Then, not long after her parents came out of the villa after putting away the supplies, I ran them over, and my stupid best friend has been in a daze since her parents died and hasn't even gone out the door. She didn't have the heart to care about those supplies at all. So I'm sure those supplies are still in the basement of this villa. Then what are we waiting for? Second brother, hurry up and go in and look for them. The thin, sharp-nosed man couldn't wait and rushed towards my villa. The burly man was also excited and chased after the thin man towards my villa. At this moment, I felt both scared and excited. I was scared because that bitch Amelia actually brought 2 men to covet the supplies in the basement of my house. Once they found me and broke into the villa, I was probably doomed. I was excited because Amelia didn't die, and I had another chance to kill her with my own hands. I adjusted the current of the electric fence to the maximum threshold. As long as they touched the electric fence I had set up outside the door, they would be instantly electrocuted into a charred state and go to hell. And the electric fence I set up was the same color as an ordinary hemp rope. Most people couldn't find any clues and would think it was an ordinary hemp rope. 1, 2, 3, watching the 2 men getting closer and closer to the electric fence, I counted in my heart, but just as the 2 men were about to touch the electric fence, Amelia caught up and stopped them. Wait a minute, there's something wrong with this villa. 24, the 2 men immediately stopped and looked at Amelia in confusion. What's wrong? Look. The exterior walls and even the balconies of this villa are equipped with steel plates. What does this mean? It means that there must be someone living inside, and this person has a very high sense of precaution. I saw a type of electric fence on the internet. On the surface, it looks just like an ordinary hemp rope. If I'm not mistaken, these hemp ropes in front of us are probably that kind of electric fence, as Amelia spoke. She picked up a piece of rotten meat on the ground and threw it onto the electric fence. Immediately, there was a crackling sound of electricity. Sure enough, it's an electric fence. If you two had bumped into it with your bodies just now, you'd be in the same state as this piece of rotten meat now. My heart sank to the bottom. I didn't expect Amelia to be so smart. The electric fence I bought was very rare, yet she recognized it. No wonder she was Raleigh's mistress. She had the same intelligence as Raleigh. Truly, a good saddle matches a good horse. It was no wonder that a beast and a scoundrel could get together. They really had common characteristics. That was close, baby. You're so amazing. Thanks to you. Or else your second husband would have turned into charcoal. Come here and let your second husband give you a kiss. The burly man took a deep breath and hugged Amelia in his arms, giving her a hard kiss. Damn it, how dare she try to trick me. Second brother, drive the armored vehicle over here and blow this villa to pieces. The thin, sharp-nosed man had a vicious look on his face and wanted to use the armored vehicle to bomb the villa, but Amelia stopped him. Husband, no, the sound of the cannonballs is too loud, and it will attract all the zombies around here. Then, Amelia looked in my direction and sneered. Good sister, I didn't expect you to still be alive. You should have heard everything, right? That's right. I drove and killed your parents. Come out and take revenge on me now. This was a provocation. Amelia wanted to anger me and make me lose my mind and rush out to fight her. I was really angry when I heard her words, but I wasn't stupid enough to rush out and fight her directly. The two men were so brutal and fully armed. If I, a weak woman, rushed out, I would definitely be courting death. I held my breath and didn't make a sound, not giving any response. Is there really no one here? It's been so long since the apocalypse broke out. The food inside is probably all gone, and the people inside probably went out to look for food and were bitten to death by zombies long ago. The thin man expressed his analysis. I think what the boss said is right. The burly man nodded without any intelligence. It's not very likely. If the people inside went out to look for food, why is the electric fence still electrified? This villa is equipped with so many steel plates, which shows that the people inside must have made sufficient preparations to deal with the apocalypse. There's probably a lot of food inside, and they definitely couldn't have finished it in a short time. Moreover, I'm sure that the person inside is my best friend because the villas here are independent, and the doors and locks have a very high safety performance. It's very difficult for someone who isn't the owner of the villa to get in. The apocalypse came so suddenly. Besides the owner of the villa, who could enter the villa and make such sufficient preparations, Amelia analyzed calmly, which made my heart sink even further. This woman was very smart and showed strong detective abilities. She was really difficult to deal with. Damn it, we can't use cannonballs to bomb it, and this villa is so solidly equipped. How are we going to get in? The burly man scratched his head irritably. 25. Amelia said, don't we have scissors and a power drill? First, use the scissors to cut the electric fence, and then use the power drill to drill open the lock. That's a good idea. Second brother, go to the armored vehicle and get the scissors and power drill. The thin man ordered the burly man. Amelia then looked in the direction of my window and said loudly, good sister, you've seen it too. We have a way to enter the villa. I'll give you one more chance. If you take the initiative to open the door and come out, I'll spare your life and even let you be my two husbands' concubine. We can dominate the apocalypse together. It will be so much fun. I know you hate me, but it's the apocalypse now. Don't hold on to the past. Even if your parents hadn't been killed by me, they would definitely have been bitten to death by zombies later. I killed them, which relieved them of their pain. You should be grateful to me. I'll give you 5 minutes to think about it. If you think it through and come out on your own, I will definitely keep my word. This woman was really shameless. She actually said such brazen words. I couldn't hold back my anger but didn't make a sound. At this moment, I needed to stay calm and make these 3 scoundrels lower their guard so that I could have a chance to kill them and solve the crisis. Could there really be no one here? I guess I was overthinking it. Husband, let's start the operation. After 5 minutes, seeing that there was no sound coming from the villa, Amelia's guard was lowered a lot. The 2 men quickly cut the electric fence and then started to drill the door. Although the door of my villa was solid and equipped with steel plates, under the intense attack of the power drill for more than 10 minutes, it was gradually falling apart. Seeing that the door was about to be broken through, I tightly held the machete I had prepared in advance and went to the wall on the right side of the first floor door. I pressed myself tightly against the wall and raised the machete high, just waiting for the two men to rush in so that I could chop down with the machete. 26. Bang. More than 10 seconds later, the door finally couldn't hold on and was drilled open by the power drill. The burly man kicked open the door and walked in. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for. The moment he walked in, I raised the machete and chopped down. Although the burly man was on guard, I was fast enough and decisive enough. Before he could react, I cut his neck with one slash. My knife was sharp enough to cut off the burly man's head with one strike. Then, I immediately chopped at the thin man who was walking behind the burly man. But at this time, the thin man was already on guard and quickly dodged my knife. He even grabbed my knife. Bitch, how dare you kill my brother? I'm going to chop you into minced meat and feed you to the zombies. Looking at the burly man whose head was cut off on the ground, the thin man's eyes were bloodshot and full of hostility. Zara, you're really still alive. Husband, catch her. I want to torture her severely to avenge you. Amelia also rushed up to catch me. I didn't expect Amelia to be so fast. She grabbed my arm, and the thin man also took the opportunity to pull the machete out of my hand. I struggled desperately, but I was no match for the two of them. They quickly pinned me down on the ground. Zara, look at you now. You're so pathetic. You thought you could hide here and live a comfortable life. It's a pity that you met me. You should have died when your parents were killed by me. No, I'll let you taste the pain of being tortured. Amelia sneered, her eyes filled with malice. Damn it, this bitch actually killed my brother. I'll kill her first, and then we'll slowly search for the food and water in this villa. The thin man was filled with anger and raised the machete, ready to chop at me. At this critical moment, I suddenly remembered that I had a hidden weapon in my pocket. It was a small bottle of highly corrosive liquid that I had prepared in case of an emergency. I quickly took out the small bottle and threw it at the thin man's face. The thin man let out a scream as the highly corrosive liquid splashed onto his face. His face immediately began to corrode, and the skin peeled off piece by piece, revealing the bloody flesh underneath. He dropped the machete and covered his face with both hands, rolling on the ground in pain. Amelia was shocked by this sudden change. She was distracted for a moment, and I took the opportunity to break free from her grip. I quickly picked up the machete that the thin man had dropped and rushed towards Amelia. Zara, don't be crazy. We can talk about it. I can give you a chance to live, as long as you promise to be my subordinate. I won't kill you. Amelia was scared and started to beg for mercy. Amelia, do you think I'll believe you? You killed my parents, and you and Raleigh plotted against me. You deserve to die. I gritted my teeth and swung the machete at Amelia. Amelia tried her best to dodge, but she was no match for my determined attack. I cut her arm with the machete, and blood spurted out. She let out a scream and fell to the ground. I didn't stop. I continued to attack her, slashing at her body one after another. Finally, Amelia stopped moving. She lay on the ground, covered in blood, and was dead. I looked at her body and felt a sense of relief. After so long, I finally avenged my parents and myself, but the crisis wasn't over yet. The thin man was still rolling on the ground, and he might still pose a threat. I took a deep breath and walked towards the thin man. The thin man saw me approaching and tried to get up and fight back, but his face was severely corroded, and he was in so much pain that he couldn't move. I raised the machete and chopped at his neck, ending his life completely. After dealing with the three scoundrels, I was exhausted. I sat on the ground, gasping for breath. I knew that this was just a small episode in the apocalypse. There might be more dangers and challenges waiting for me in the future. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had the strength and determination to survive in this cruel world. I got up and started to clean up the mess. I dragged the bodies of the three people outside and let the zombies devour them. Then, I repaired the damaged door and electric fence to ensure the safety of the villa. After everything was done, I went back to the villa and made myself a delicious meal. I sat at the dining table and enjoyed the food, looking at the peaceful villa. I felt a sense of satisfaction. I would continue to live in this villa, waiting for the end of the apocalypse, or for new challenges. Time passed day by day. I continued to live a lonely but peaceful life in the villa. I grew some vegetables in the yard, raised some chickens, and gradually became more self-sufficient. One day, while I was watering the vegetables, I heard a strange noise in the distance. I stopped what I was doing and looked in the direction of the noise. I saw a group of people walking towards the villa. They were dressed in rags, and their faces were pale and haggard. I was on guard immediately. I didn't know whether these people were friendly or a threat. I quickly went back to the villa and took out my weapons. I stood at the door, waiting for them to approach. As they got closer, I could see that there were men, women, and children in this group. Please, help us. We're so hungry and thirsty. We haven't eaten for days. A woman in the front of the group pleaded with me. I hesitated for a moment. I remembered the tragic experience of the mother and daughter next door, and I was worried that these people might be dangerous. But looking at their emaciated faces and the innocent eyes of the children, I couldn't bear to turn them away. Okay, but you have to stay outside first. I'll give you some food and water, I said to them. I went back to the villa and brought out some bread, water, and canned food. I placed them in front of the group of people. Thank you so much. The people were overjoyed and quickly grabbed the food and water, gobbling it up. I watched them eat, and my heart softened a little. Where did you come from? How did you get here? I asked the woman who had pleaded with me earlier. We came from a small town not far from here. There were too many zombies there, and we had no choice but to flee. We've been walking for days. And this is the first place we've found with someone living in it, the woman replied. I nodded. I understood their difficulties. Do you have a place to go next? I asked. The woman shook her head. No, we don't know where to go. We're just wandering around, hoping to find a safe place. I thought for a moment. I knew that it was very dangerous for them to continue wandering like this. Okay, you can stay here for a while. But you have to follow my rules. You can't cause any trouble. And you have to help with the work around the villa, I said to them. The people were overjoyed and quickly thanked me. Thank you so much. We will definitely follow your rules. Since then, the group of people stayed in the villa. I divided the work among them, and they helped me with various things around the villa. We lived together, and gradually, I felt a sense of warmth and companionship. I knew that the apocalypse was still going on. And there were still many difficulties and challenges ahead, but with these people by my side, I felt more confident and determined to face the future, and I also hoped that one day, the apocalypse would end, and we could return to a normal life.